Would you please call the roll, please?
Cabell. Kowal.
Here.
McGillivray.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Charles, I think, is getting situated. Long.
Here.
Moss.
Here.
Markham.
Here.
Yeah, the phone.
Great, thank you. Let's all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The purpose of today's meeting is to have budget presentations from a whole bunch of departments, tell us what their next year's budget looks like and what their priorities are. We do not have public comment at the beginning of the meeting because we have no items that we're going to be taking action on, but there is a public comment session at the end of this meeting. So with that, if anybody doesn't have any other business to come before the committee, I think we'll jump right in with the budget presentation for the circuit court. Now, I have, while they're getting set up, I have told departments that they could have their experts virtually showing up, but that we'd really prefer to have, you know, a live person here speaking to us, so it feels more partnership. Also, we do have a few snacks in the back because these are going to be long days the next few days. So I asked, and they are, we purchased them, but they are supplied by the guys down in the cafeteria down below because we want to support the cafeteria down in the bottom of the county building.
That,
so
that was really nice.
yeah, so if you need a munchie, we have munchies. Okay, so welcome to the circuit court. Judge Mattis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Mattis. I'm the Chief Judge of the Oakland County Circuit Court. I asked some other individuals to come with me today representing the court, anticipating that perhaps some questions or items might best be answered by some other individuals. So I will ask everybody to introduce themselves and just give their title so that you'll know who's all here with me. Kevin.
Kevin Offner, Court Administrator. Good to see all of you.
John Cooperrider, the court business manager.
And then some on the side.
Yeah, hi, Pam Monville, Deputy Court Administrator.
Suzanne Hollier, friend of the court director.
Jeanette Lushin, Chief Assistant, friend of the court.
Christina Buchak, I am in training for court business manager.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. And actually, yes, what a great segue into things I want to talk about. But the gentleman seated to my right has announced he'll be retiring, is going to be leaving us in the near future. We went through a long process and ultimately offered the position to Pam, who's seated over there. I'm sorry, Chris. Pam is seated over here. Slip of the tongue. And so, yes, Chris. Pam is over here. Pam has been instrumental as well in assisting. So, yes, Chris. And Chris is currently with the court, and she's going to be transitioning to, obviously, John's position when he leaves after how many years?
30, a little over 34.
34 years. Long time. Long time. So in any event, so we have a great team of people. On behalf of all the court employees, all the judges, just want to thank you for letting us come today, make our presentation. As a former commissioner myself, I know how important the budget process is, how much work it is for you, especially on this committee, to go through all the information for the different departments and then ultimately vote on it and send the matter back to the full board. So I appreciate it, and we all do as well. So some things that I thought I would just give you some information on, and certainly we're ready to answer any questions you might have. So we've worked very closely with the executive's office on our budget. We were given a budget task, and we have met that task. We have obviously reduced, where appropriate and where we needed to, and have put together what we believe is a very thoughtful, reasonable, appropriate budget that lets us continue to serve the people of the county and operate the court as we need to. Very quick overview of the court. Some of you probably know, but just in case some don't. So we have 20 circuit judges in Oakland County. And we're broken down into a few different divisions. We have a business court division, which is 2 judges. They handle, just as it sounds, business disputes. 2 companies are suing each other, and that goes into the business court. And that was created a few years ago. We have a family division, which handles domestic matters, divorces, custody, paternity, PPO cases, juvenile, criminal matters involving juvenile, a number of other things. We have 7 judges in that division. And then we have a civil criminal division, which is 11 judges, which is civil lawsuits, everything above the $25,000 amount that the district courts handle, that we handle, as well as adult criminal matters of all types, felonies and some misdemeanors if it's attached to a felony. We also have specialty courts. We have treatment courts. We have an adult treatment court that addresses individuals with substance abuse, alcohol addictions. We have judges that handle the females. We have judges who handle the males, and they're broken down into mental health and substance abuse, or just substance abuse. We also have a veterans court. Judge Grant is the judge involved in that. So we have a number of specialty court programs that we have found to be very successful in many regards. And you know, the goal there is to help through really an intensive oversight, intensive probationary program, regular meetings, testing, to help people to address those issues, and ultimately, if they advance through the program, they successfully graduate. We do track recidivism rates, and certainly not every case is a guarantee, but we've had a lot of successes, and certainly enough to think that the programs are worthwhile and are very beneficial, you know, for people here in the county. One thing that we're dealing with is, and I already alluded to it a little bit, is, as you know, the county offered an early retirement, the VESIP program, and we had a number of court employees take the early retirement. We have, and Kevin will probably know the exact number, but we have approximately 400 court employees, give or take a few. I think it's a few more than that, and about 10% of our court employees took the early retirement. So it's a pretty large number in terms of, you know, numbers. Many of them have already left. You know, they've taken their retirement and they have retired. But there are still some who have not. Obviously, the gentleman to my right and the gentleman to my left is going to be retiring in the near future as well. So, as are others. So obviously that's something we're looking at, because, you know, just because a position opens, do we immediately have to fill that position? In some cases, yes. You know, it's a core position we have to fill. But other times, no. So we're looking at that, and you know, we're really making thoughtful decisions, trying to be good stewards of the people's, you know, tax dollars. If a position opens, you know, do we have to fill it? If we do, what's the best way to do it? And in some cases, not. But that's something, obviously, that's a challenge for us that we're working on. Court operations in terms of COVID, and, you know, where are we now? So obviously COVID, you know, created an incredible challenge for us. You know, in terms of, we were literally ordered by the Supreme Court and the governor not to try cases, not to bring jurors into the courthouse, so we could not conduct trials for a pretty lengthy period of time. But we shifted to video, as many courts did around the state, and we conducted a lot of proceedings by video. So now that we're a little further down the road, you know, the question is asked, are you doing things in person? Are you doing things by video? You know, how are you handling court proceedings? So the Supreme Court has said that they've directed us to use video as much as possible, understanding that some things have to be done in person, you know, a jury trial or a criminal case where a defendant is objecting to video, because a person has to agree to be on video. If they object and say, no, I want to be in person, then you do it in person. So there's always going to be instances where you have to do it in person, trials, you know, various things. But you know, we are looking at the video, and it is something that we do. I just conducted some video proceedings this morning. And in some cases, you know, it is beneficial. Just a good example of some things that I've had just recently. So I had a trial, and one of the witnesses was in the National Guard and gotten called up and was sent somewhere outside the United States. And all of a sudden, the question became, well, do we adjourn this trial and wait till the person comes back, in which case the case stops, nothing, you know, we don't do the trial, or do we do the trial and the person just testifies by video from the Middle East, which is, I think, where he was. And the lawyers all agreed, absolutely, we'll do it by video. So there's a lot of advantages to video in whole or in part that help us keep moving our cases forward. So where the parties agree, where the judge thinks it's appropriate, certainly video is it's another tool in our toolbox, if you will, that a judge can use to help keep the cases moving forward. Another example that comes up that I saw firsthand when I was one of the judges in our specialty court, the adult treatment court program, is we have regular meetings of the individuals in the treatment court program. Well, a lot of them are working. And if the person has to drive to court and spend a whole day sitting in a courtroom waiting for his or her 15 minutes to talk about their case, potentially, are they in trouble at work? Could their employer say, hey, you're missing too much work, I have to let you go? You could run into issues. But if the person can just go out in their car in the parking lot at work through their phone, Zoom in or Teams or whatever you use, and participate that way, all of a sudden, you're still having a meaningful proceeding with that individual. Now you've reduced the chance the person loses his or her job. You keep them on a better track. Just a lot of advantages. So again, that video or in-person issue is something going forward. I personally see a hybrid where we're going to do in-person sometimes, we're going to do video sometimes. And it's going to depend on the proceeding, whether the parties agree, is there an objection, the circumstances, but ultimately it is another tool we can use to move forward. In that vein, one of the things with video, it does create challenges for us, though. So one example is lawyers. The lawyers on the cases are busy. They have a lot of different cases. It's not uncommon, especially in a criminal case, for appointed lawyers to have multiple proceedings the same morning in front of different judges. And if some judges are in person and this is the district court judges as well as us here or even in other counties. So one of the issues that comes up is some lawyers will say, I don't have any place to go. If I'm in person somewhere, like here in the building, and then I've got to do a Zoom or video proceeding with another judge or another court, I don't want to be sitting in the hallway with the public as I'm trying to do a hearing, which is loud and disruptive, and maybe there's confidential information being discussed you don't want the world to hear. So in response to that, what we've done is we have created some rooms, some attorney rooms here in the building where attorneys can go and have a private session on video, and it's convenient for them to be here in the building so that they are in front of one judge in person, but then the next judge's video, they can then duck into this room and do it. And we've got a handful of rooms. We've communicated that through the county bar, through legal news, a number of sources to get the word out to attorneys in response to what we heard from the lawyers saying, this is a problem for us. And we're assessing the need, and we may potentially be coming back to you if the rooms are regularly all filled, we might have to say, okay, we need to expand, we need more space, we need to do something. But at least what I've heard so far is it's well received. And again, it's just helping to facilitate another tool that we can use as judges to help move our cases forward. And in terms of technology, so we've had to update equipment. The use of the video proceedings, whether it's Teams or Zooms or other things, candidly, some of our computers are old and they didn't accommodate that very well as other new technologies for videos. And so working with IT and our own people, we've made a number of improvements, but we still have we have more that we have to do. So we're kind of going through our equipment and technology and assessing what we can do to make sure we have what we need. Obviously, the Oxford case, which everyone knows about, we've been having proceedings which, candidly, the world is seeing. They're being communicated through our system. And I know I've had a number of commissioners indicate about, shouldn't it be high definition or something, a little higher improved technology? So not all of our courtrooms have been upgraded to the high def type technology. Some have, but obviously it's extremely costly. So we've had a plan to go through and do as many as we can, and do it efficiently and do it cost effectively. But we're working on that. And so one of the things that I've looked into is if we have to have proceedings on the Oxford case, potentially doing them in a courtroom that has that increased technology so that it'll be that, the better technology, for anyone watching it who can see it. That does create some challenges because now you're displacing another judge who was in that courtroom, and you've just got to work out all those logistics. So, but that is something we're aware of. We have a management system, mainframe that we use, a case management system, and it is very old. But I always joke that, I think Bill Gates, learned about this when, he was in high school. I mean, it's just extremely old. And we're being told by IT that they're having trouble keeping it running because it is so old, that they're doing the best we can. So we began the process of replacing it, obviously going out for bids, getting vendors, there's a lot of steps there. We became aware of the fact that the state of Michigan was looking at a statewide system that they would want the entire state to use. And so that created some challenges for us. Obviously, we want to work with the state. There could be cost advantages to going with the state system. But we need something for us, and we don't want to go too far down the road. At least I felt I didn't want to have us incur costs, develop a great system, and then have the state come in and say, well, you got to use our system instead, and then we've got to change everything, and we've spent a bunch of money. So there's just a lot of considerations there. So we're communicating with the state to find out where are things at with them. What are they ultimately, at the end of the day, going to come up with? Is that something, are we going to be required to do it? Should we do it? And then on our end, costs and understanding we have a system that's going to need to be replaced, so we've got to do something. But there's different tracks we could go. So we're looking at that. In terms of court operations, we are open for business. We're here, we're working. I did issue an administrative directive that all chambers were to be staffed, in person. There's to be someone there in person to serve the public. I will say that we have had some individuals who have worked remotely under limited and appropriate circumstances. Obviously, if someone, for example, I'm aware of someone who had a COVID exposure and didn't want to come into the building and said, I feel okay, I can work from home. Is it okay if I work from home today and, do my job? I can do it remotely, but just not come in. And in that case, that was appropriate. So, so we're looking at that. But bottom line is we're open for business. We're here, and if you need to reach someone, certainly the administration office is open. The others are available, and I'm certainly here and available for that. Another point is that from time to time, the Michigan Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, or the legislature could pass a law, issue a case, or take some action that has an impact on us. I think probably the Juneteenth issue is probably a recent example of that you saw. Another example is a while ago, the Supreme Court passed a law that said that it was unconstitutional to sentence a juvenile convicted of murder to life without parole, automatically. You have to have a hearing and go through a lot of analysis, and ultimately that's an option a court could choose, but it can't be mandatory. And so now that resulted in us having to do a lot of hearings for what we call our juvenile lifer cases. So things like that come up from time to time that require us to have more hearings or take action or do things. And it's a little hard to predict sometimes when those arise, but that's certainly something in the future we could come back to you, and there could be a budget impact to the extent that we have to do something that has been required somehow. Criminal justice reform, as some of you probably may have heard, is a hot topic in Lansing right now. We're monitoring that, not sure exactly at the end of the day what all that will mean, but it may have an impact on us and our operations and budget issues, potentially at least. We're continuing to meet with the health department. That was something that we really started early in COVID, that we had regular meetings with the health department. My predecessor, Chief Judge Kumar, did, and then I continued that as I became chief, just to get regular updates on any health issues in the county, any impact on us, to the extent, does it have any impact on our operations? And that's something we are continuing. So at the end of the day, as it pertains to the public who comes in the building and the employees, that we can be, fully updated on any health issues and then take appropriate action, based on what we're told. We're commonly asked, do we still have a backlog of cases? Do we have, a backlog? There's no doubt during COVID, when we were told we were ordered not to have trials, our cases went up. No question. We couldn't dispense cases. We couldn't have trials. But we've been working very hard to move forward on that. There's no doubt, our numbers have more kind of stabilized, gone back to a more normal type setting. Certainly, we still have some older cases that we're working on, and we're focusing on those cases and getting them tried as soon as possible. But we have worked very hard as a bench, tried a lot of cases, set a lot of firm trial dates, which really helps to resolve cases, both criminal and civil. When you give parties a firm trial date and they know that they're going to go to trial, a lot of cases resolve, civil or criminal, and some that don't get their date, and then we can move forward. So we're working. And the other thing is I've talked with other courts as well as the Michigan Supreme Court to see what are they doing. If anyone has an idea on something they've done to help move their cases along that we haven't thought of, I'm open to suggestion on that. So we're talking to others as well. But we are moving forward, and we are working, toward the cases coming down, and they really have come down. So I guess the bottom line, the state of the Oakland County Circuit Court is strong. We're open for business. We're moving our cases. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you asking us or giving us the opportunity to be here today, and we're ready to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay. I'm happy to open the floor to my colleagues. I'll start with Commissioner Long.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Yeah.
You said you had a budget test. What was that? What amount was that?
Who's got the exact number?
$1,033,000.
Okay, and then where did you cut? What did you cut to meet that 1 million?
So for the current year, last year as we were preparing for the current year, the bench approved about $787,000 in cuts, and it was mostly positions. And then so that left about 200 and some thousand.
Okay.
And that's being addressed in your current, the county executive's 2023 budget recommendation.
All right, so most of it was last year?
Yes.
Okay, the
Yeah.
positions you said.
And the positions were open positions
Okay.
that we did not fill. So we
Okay.
didn't let people go, but when an opening came up, we took advantage of that, felt we didn't need to fill it, and then eliminated it going forward. That helped meet the budget
Okay,
task.
so it's nothing that you need, with your videoing or anything, nothing, it was open positions. Okay, thank you. That's what I had.
Okay, Commissioner Moss had a question, and then it'll be Commissioner Cavell, and then Commissioner Powell.
Well, thank you, Your Honor, for coming. It's a wonderful presentation. I have a question. You're talking about the fees and things for the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, Indigent. Is that what is the actual budget impact of the Indigent Defense on the operations of Circuit Court? It's more than that 1.2 or 1.2 million.
So I guess if I could answer your question first by giving a little bit of background for some who might not be familiar with the situation, then I'll defer to others.
Those of us who know it all
specific
too
numbers
quite well.
So, all right. So it used to be that we're talking about in a criminal case where the person cannot afford their own lawyer and is entitled to have an attorney. That it used to be the judge would appoint the attorney to represent the defendant. That's the way it's been done, forever, really. And with the creation of the Indigent Defense Commission, what that does is now created that entity, Indigent Defense, who makes the appointment. So the judge no longer makes an appointment. Now, the judge makes a determination, is the person indigent, can he or she afford a lawyer? If they have a ton of money and they can afford a lawyer, they're not indigent, that's a different deal. But assuming they can't afford their own lawyer and they meet that requirement, now the commission appoints. And I think the thought behind it was there was a conflict. In other words, if a judge is appointing the lawyer, to some degree that lawyer feels beholden to the judge, like, hey, I better not do something that's going to upset the judge, or I might not get another appointment. I think that was argued as a rationale for why that was created. I will just say it has created a lot of challenges for us from an operational standpoint, and we're working through them. But like one example, so it's common that you'll have an expert witness or an investigator also appointed to represent a defendant, depending on the kind of case. Well, that expert or investigator may want to go into the jail physically and, let's say the person's incarcerated, and meet with the defendant to gather information to assist with the defense. We used to, when judges would appoint the lawyer, the judges in the order would put language that said that. If an investigator or expert can go into the jail and meet with the defendant, follow the jail rules and all that. Well, now, since Indigent Defense is making the appointment, there's no order issued. So the jail communicated to me not long ago that was creating a problem because people were showing up at the jail, experts or investigators, they're not being allowed in. There's no order that said they could go in, and it was creating issues. And so ultimately, the way we addressed that, the bench as a whole discussed it and voted that I would sign just a global order that applied to all the cases as the chief that would say that if an expert or an investigator is appointed and can provide proof of that, who they are, that they've been appointed, that they're allowed into the jail to meet with the defendant in the context of preparation of the case. So there's been a lot of little things like that used to be handled by judges when the judge made the appointment that now has to be addressed in another way because we don't make the appointment anymore. But that's sort of the big picture view. Now, to answer your question specifically, Kevin or John, do you have the numbers that he was asking? And he was asking
Ballpark will be
about.
fine.
So, the expense for court-appointed attorneys was moved out of our budget about a year or two ago.
Right.
So it's no longer in our budget.
Right. So we don't pay for the appointments, but were you asking about impact on the court
Yeah,
from a
everything
budgeting
else,
standpoint
because
in any way related to
I
this?
can't imagine this does not have Headley implications. It's a state law that affects the locals. How is this not come right under Headley? Because they say it doesn't?
Well, obviously, Headley is referring to an unfunded mandate situation.
It does, doesn't it?
Where someone, Lansing,
Yeah.
creates a requirement on the lower court, lower level,
Yeah.
but doesn't provide funding for
Exactly.
it. That's the pretext of Headley. So, Kevin, any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know, John, if you would concur, but so we were paying, we had an appropriation in our budget. The bench, the judge, Mattis, would appoint an attorney. The attorney would fulfill his obligation, come to us afterwards, we would pay. So we had an appropriation in our budget for that. Then we could actually go, and if they had any kind of financial means whatsoever, we could see if we could recoup a portion of that. And if you notice, you probably have seen a $1.2 million reduction in revenue
I do.
in our budget. So it's my understanding the county executive has made a decision that we're not going to seek reimbursement for any portion of attorney fees, and that's his call, and so that's why you'll see that $1.2 million, bringing that revenue line item down to zero. So, but Kyle may have some further.
Feel free.
I can speak to it if everyone's comfortable.
Sure, feel free, jump in.
Sure.
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, Kyle Jen, Director of Management and Budget. So there's a few things, that are happening in the budget that I think the team has done a good job of describing. Obviously, all of our direct costs going forward in the indigent defense space are being funded by a state grant, so that takes care of any Headley concerns there, with the exception of, a maintenance of effort appropriation that we have to make every year out of the county general fund, which I think is about 1.8 million. Okay. In terms of the revenue side, the policy decision was made, both on policy grounds and the fact that Standard 5 issued by the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission recently, requires that there be a presumption of indigence for defendants, and that reimbursement for defense attorney fees not be collected. In terms of the fiscal implications of that, we are really already getting credit for that in our maintenance of effort payment. So if not for the fact that we had been collecting that revenue, our maintenance of effort payment would be higher than it is now. So from that perspective, it is an adjustment to the budget year over year in terms of revenue, but is not really a loss to the county in terms of the overall picture around indigent defense costs. So I hope that
What
makes
you're saying
sense.
is that the people who are in the indigent defense program have to be like, indigent. Okay. Great. Thank you. I mean, if I may, another quite completely different, I noticed that you've got a number of positions here. I'm looking at the categorical. Down under fiscal 2023 expenditures, controllable personnel, you've dumped a number of how come all those positions are lost, or is it just, I know you got a lot of guys retiring, is it just that you're not going to replace all those positions, or?
Well, in terms of, I guess, let me just address a few things. Open positions have created themselves in a number of ways. One is, yes, people have retired. Another is, we had open positions that had just been open for a period of time, during COVID, and we just looked at it and came to realize, we've been operating with this position not filled now for a while, and we just made a determination that we could continue to operate that way without filling the position. So I think they came from a number of different ways that positions became open. But ultimately, we looked at every one, and a number of them were in the family division. So, of course, we got the input of, if it was friend of the court, from the folks at the front of the court that are here. Other people, the judges in the family division who saw things firsthand and got their input on, is this position needed or not, and then ultimately made that call. So we felt all the positions that are on the list that we cut were thoroughly considered by a lot of different people who dealt with them, and we felt that it was appropriate to take the action we did.
So it's sort of like the movie Office Space. What would you say you do here? You find out whether you're not here, you're not missed. And one more, and it seems like a small one here, but it's you're rebuilding in the building liability fund, rebuild adequate claim reserves that have depleted over the last. How come they depleted? And I said that the claims have depleted.
John, do you
but they,
wanna-
yeah.
I would answer, but I need to clarify a little bit. Where are you looking?
Okay, I'm on the categorical page 20, Circuit Court, and it says at the very end, near the end, also insurance fund decreased, which reflects an adjustment in the amount allocated for self-insurance in order to maintain the operations of the building and liability fund and start to rebuild adequate claim reserves that have depleted over the last several years. Fair enough. I've just, I see funds deplete all the time. I'm wondering what's the deal? Why did this fund deplete?
We don't set the insurance fund. I don't know.
Okay,
The county executive office.
It's county executive?
So,
Okay.
I don't know if anybody can just speak to that.
Yeah, it's very
I'll
possible.
you again.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Feel
Jett. It's
free,
always-
if you have input,
Down
feel
there?
free.
Yeah. Possibly.
Oh, okay.
So the Building Liability Fund is the fund, that houses the costs of insuring our facilities and certain legal claims. This was actually an adjustment we made last year in the budget that I think, is reflected in this description last year, but the balance in that fund had been declining for a number of years. So we made an adjustment, to make sure that enough revenue was being charged out each year in that fund, to cover the long-term average in terms of costs. And then secondly, we adjusted the cost allocation formula to make sure that the claims, the claims history in terms of which departments are experiencing, these kinds of legal claims, that those costs were allocated fairly out to those. So this language is a little bit stale in terms of reflecting something that actually happened last year in the budget.
Case to me, but so in other words, but the fund itself is now essentially on a good footing.
Correct.
Great, thank you. I'm done.
It's a heartwarming story.
We like those.
Okay, next up we have Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you, Chair. Hi. I just was curious, in looking at the categorical analysis, you deleted from the family division a caseworker. Was that an open position, or did someone retire, or is that no longer someone serving a need in the community?
Somebody did retire, and yes, it left it open. And
Okay.
So we were able to delete it.
Okay. All right, thanks. And then I don't know if this touches you all, but the recent case with the 36th District Court and Ross about bail reform and all that, does that have implications in the way you all think?
When you say recent case, I guess I'm not
In
familiar.
July, there was, in 36th District Court, I know
Mhm.
your circuit court, but
Mhm.
36th District Court down in Detroit, the ACLU had sued 36th District Court
Okay.
on pretrial and people who are indigent having to be like housed in jail before their cases were seen. I don't
Mhm.
know if that impacts you at all.
Well, the issue of bond, or
Yeah.
bail, comes up in every case. When obviously we're talking about criminal cases, and the issue is, when someone's charged with a crime, could be anything from retail fraud, a fairly minor, a theft-related matter, to murder. Then the judge handling the case makes a determination on bond. And just to kind of maybe get into the weeds a little bit, so the way our cases work is they start in the district court. District courts do the initial proceedings. They do an arraignment, they'll do a preliminary examination, they make a determination if they have to find to a probable cause standard that a crime's been committed and that the defendant committed the crime. If it doesn't meet that, the case should not come to us. It should either be dismissed or be resolved at the district court level. But assuming that's found, then the case is what we call bound over. It comes to us at the circuit court, and that's when we see it. So by the time the case comes to us, the district courts have already made a determination about a number of things, one being bond. So then our role as circuit judges, when we get the case, we do the initial arraignment. You can revisit the bond. If a judge feels that the district court was correct in the bond, the district or circuit judge could just leave the bond the same. But we do have the ability under the law to revisit it. If you feel that it should be adjusted up or down, you can do that. And also, and then a number of conditions could come in. You could impose a tether. You could have a no contact. Let's say there's a victim. You could order the person not to have contact with the victim. So there's a number of things. So by the time we get it, that has already occurred by the district judge. And that's where what you're referring to, the district judges would be the first court to address bond. But we can do it. And each judge, and there's court rules that address factors that each judge is supposed to and is required to analyze for each individual case and then make a decision. And at that proceeding, of course, the prosecutor's there, as is the defense attorney, and they're weighing in and giving their position and what it should be. And ultimately, the judge would rule, and there'd be a record made of that decision, which could be appealed. If either side is not satisfied with the ruling, they could appeal. So that's the general process. So now to describe, in fact, I was just, before I came down, was looking at the legal news, and there was a story about the chief judge in the 36th District Court talking about, that case. So I'm certainly aware of it. I know I stay informed about legal news and decisions and matters. And I assume most judges do, and I think from my own experience they do. So, but yes, that's something certainly that we would take into consideration is, all the factors that a judge is supposed to look at to make that bond decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the potential impact is not immediate. There might be something in the future, but that's not of this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, I'm not aware of a decision that has come down from that would be binding on us at the present time, but certainly that's an issue in the news. And I think I mentioned earlier about criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
One of the topics as part of that I've heard discussed in Lansing is bond issues, bail, whether that the rules should be changed, whether there should be more direction given to trial courts, whether there should be a mandate of some kind that, bond shall be X unless certain things are met. I know there's been a lot discussed. I think it's a topic right now in the news that certainly is being discussed by a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Commissioner Powell. I will say we're trying to keep these to about 40 minutes, so I think we have about 5 to 10 minutes left.
So,
Everybody knows. You have plenty of time. You have a
so
little
the
time.
two questions that I have, one is, I wanted to know, are we, family court?
Mm-hmm.
Do the parents, sometimes, of course, when you have two parents, you probably can't co-parent well, and the judge
Sometimes.
may order for them to, what I've seen in Wayne County is that they have a text system now,
Mm-hmm.
to where they email, they text, they do everything in the system. Do we have that here set up at Oakland County?
So I'll ask our friend of the court folks to chime in, but I can tell you from I was a family court judge for about 3 or so years. There was something called Family Wizard that was used quite a bit, which was an electronic means of communicating. between parents, because you're right. I mean, in a perfect world, you have two parents who, equally co-parent and are both engaged and work together. That doesn't always work. Sometimes it doesn't, and there's challenges there. But yes, to your point, yes, there's something that I would routinely order parties to communicate only through Family Wizard in very contentious cases. And part of it was they do have to be able to communicate. If an emergency occurs with the child, and the other parent has the right to know, they need to tell each other. But the other thing that I would always say is it also creates a record of your communications. And if either side is inappropriate and saying things, making threats or doing things you shouldn't be, you've now created the exhibit that's going to be used against you at the next court hearing. So, beyond your good behavior. But yes, that was something certainly that was, and it's still being used today.
I was just making sure.
So, yes.
So, I mean, transparently, I'm a single parent, so,
Yep.
but I never had to use it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
But I know other
Okay.
constituents who are using it, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, I hope we doing it, because I think it's great when you do have those issues, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it is what it is.
Absolutely.
And then my second question is, as provided in the categorical budget book,
Yep.
and specific to the department goal number 2, how does the court intend to develop new technology initiatives when the department's IT budget has been decreased by $516,000?
So, obviously IT, technology, that's,
Yes.
I touched on that a little bit earlier. That's
So
something
that's why I'm asking, like, wait a minute, you just told us we need to maybe do some upgrades.
Right.
Now, what is going on here?
Right, and I think to some degree, it's a little hard for me to answer that completely, and here's why. One is, as I mentioned, the document, the case management system that we're talking about. If the state, jumps in and basically says, hey, we're going to develop something, we're going to pay for it 100%, we're going to take care of it, Oakland County, just jump on board with our system, won't cost you anything, then I think, we go one way. If it goes the other way, where we have to develop it ourselves and it's on our dime, then obviously those are two very different situations. So I think there's a few things like that could really change, our role, our involvement, our cost at the end of the day, that as I sit here today, I honestly can't answer. But I would say that, certainly in terms of technology, we do things to try to save money. A good example, we need computers. We don't just sort of run out and buy a few ourselves. We work through the executive's office, sort of economies of scale. If the county's buying a lot of computers and we can add our order in with that, if you buy a whole bunch, you typically save money as opposed to buying a couple. So we do things like that to try to save money at the end of the day and be more cost efficient, because we get it. These are taxpayer dollars, and we have an obligation to spend wisely and appropriately. But technology is something we're sort of assessing. There's just a sort of a lot of moving parts. The other thing is with the sheriff's office, to the extent that we're doing video of proceedings of people in custody, they have a role in that. I know I've been communicating with the folks at the jail about that, and just trying to get a better sense of, what enhancements do we want to do? What would it cost? What's appropriate? There's just, it's a little bit of a moving target at the moment, honestly. But we're aware of the cost, and certainly
Well, Oakland County is known to have good customer service, and that goes with our court system too. So
Absolutely.
we would love to make sure that our court is up and adequate in its operation, so that the staff can perform their jobs at the level of what, as commissioners, I would say we expect. So just keep us informed.
Thank you. I agree, and thank you. Thank you for that comment. Yes,
No
I agree.
problem. I'm support staff first, though, too, just to let you ladies know. We have to be able to work.
And I should say, too, we have some representatives of the front of the court here. I don't know if they want to add anything to the discussion about the Family Wizard or anything that we just talked about, but if you do, feel free.
We do use it frequently.
I just bet you do.
Yeah. We can see it as well, so we can see the communications between the parents and intervene if they're going off the rails. So I think sometimes they think we were watching them all the time, but we usually just get pulled in to take a look at those communications when there's a problem. We use it frequently.
No, I think it's good with a lot of the domestic violence, misunderstanding. You got kids involved. I think as parents, too, we have to be on our best behavior as well, especially in front of our kids.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's nobody else from the commission that has any more questions from the committee, then I guess I just want to reinforce the the whole case management system. I've had it mentioned to me by a couple of judges that what we're doing is kind of outdated and not the same as what other counties are doing in the state. And yeah, let's do what we need to do to make sure we get you what you need.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's-
thank you.
that's
Thank
my
you very
only
much. And I should say, after we're done today and before your full board votes, if anyone has any other questions, certainly, feel free to reach out to, Kevin, our court administrator, and we'll get you an answer. I know sometimes after the committee is over, I know when I was a commissioner, I can remember a few times people would say, oh, I wish I'd asked this and I forgot, or, something comes up. Just let us know. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have the information you need so you feel you can make an informed vote however you want, but that you have the information. So we're happy to provide that.
Well, we really appreciate all the preparation that it took for you to come here and make the presentation today, and for all of you coming and being supportive of all of this. And with that,
Yeah.
if nobody else
Thank
has
you.
anything else, I
And
think
if I could just clarify one last thing, I
course.
misspeak earlier. Obviously, we have Pam Monville down at the end, Chris Bujak at the other end, and Chris is the one who's going to be replacing John. So my apologies earlier, but the entire team is valuable. Everyone's great, and thank you all for being here.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you. We'll just need 2 minutes to switch over.
Okay,
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
thank you for coming and for agreeing to go first.
Don't worry.
All right, we're going to take a couple of minutes to just get set up for the next group, which is emergency management.
Get her transparent at all.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
I saw that you were doing that. Thanks, Mike. Karen was supposed to.
Okay. We are going to move into our second budget hearing, which is the Emergency Management Department. welcome, and please introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We appreciate having a little time in front of you today. I'm Tom Hardesty, the Director of the Emergency Management Homeland Security Department, which you might recall was actually a new department in 2021. Within that is two divisions. One is Emergency Management, which Rob Seeley, on my left, your right, is the chief of that division, and he'll cover that budget. And then Building Safety Division, Mike Crum is the chief of that division. One unique feature with our department is our budget is actually split in two different things. So Emergency Management Division has its budget. Building Safety is still part of Facilities and Maintenance budget because it's part of an enterprise fund. So we work within those two and work closely with the facilities group through that budget. So we'll cover some highlights here today, and then I know they have their whole budget book tomorrow. We included in here our KPIs so that you would get a chance to look at them. As we go through the budget, you'll see a couple of these highlighted as things that we are looking for, things for programs that we're doing, which tie along with the KPIs for funding request. These are the highlights, and then the next one, some of our service level KPIs. This on emergency management side, service level, these are kind of the things we do when we're not dealing with emergencies, how we're helping both communities and county government and people get ready for emergencies and prepare for them in between. And then the next slide is the safety division's service level KPIs to give you some insight into the kinds of things that they're tracking. And one of the things we've learned is we're doing a much better job now of tracking. We may have been doing work, but we're not always great at tracking and do that. So now we're doing a better job of tracking. One thing, the next slide, I did want to touch on briefly is FEMA expenses with the pandemic to at least give you an overview of that. So since March of 2020, so way back to the very beginning of the pandemic, we've had about a little over $13.3 million in expenses that we either have or will be seeking reimbursement from FEMA for. So far, FEMA has approved a little over 8 million of those. 1.5 million was ruled not eligible by FEMA. A large chunk of this was very early in the pandemic with return to business kits, some things for private doctor offices, those kind of things FEMA would not cover. So that stuff was put under the CARES Act. So the important point there is the general fund was made whole with that. So that 1.507 was put in under the CARES Act. For fiscal year this year, the board had approved a little over 7 million appropriated funds for what could be pandemic expenses this year. Fortunately, as the year went on, the numbers decreased greatly. So the pandemic committee would review approvals first. They had approved a little over 3.6 million, and our actual expenditures as of the end of July are 2.8 million. So we expect to be well under that 7 million. We may do some carryover for minor expenses early in the year, but hopefully these numbers continue to decline and we won't see the need for that. I did want to make a note, as of July, after July 1st this year, FEMA had been reimbursing at 100%. They will reimburse at 90% for expenses after July 1st. However, we are allowed to use things like donations to count towards that 10%, and the donations don't have to come after July 1st. These are donations going all the way back to March. So the warehouse space that Penske donated, all those things. So I don't expect that we will ever have to actually pay any county funds toward these matching requirements because we'll have that covered in the value of donations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob to cover our emergency management.
Good morning. So the Emergency Management Division is a total of 13 people. That includes the director and his admin staff. We have one of our emergency management specialists that is funded by ARPA for 2 years. We have 2 grant-funded solution area planners. Those are from Urban Area Strategic Initiative grants. We have a warehouse supervisor and 2 warehouse employees that are NTech employees that are covered under FEMA currently. I'll talk about them in a second. And then 1 warehouse worker that is actually a PT&E. We have no employees that have taken the VSIP. Our workforce reductions, we have reduced 1 PT&E in order to add a full-time financial support technician. We've combined that with an emergency salaries position that we had that was also PT&E. And that will, currently our person that handles finance, he is a specialist as well. He used to do about 20% of his daily work was in finance, and the rest of it was in emergency management type duties. With the addition of building safety, his current workload is about 80 to 85% finance and only about 15% emergency management duties. This person will alleviate that responsibility from him a little bit. He'll still be involved in finance, but he'll be able to actually do the emergency management specialty items that he's supposed to be doing. Under new investments, we have $160,000 a year. I'll talk about that in a minute, to cover failing siren cabinets in the county. And then we're shifting, a major funding shift we have is we're shifting finance from the warehouse, which currently is general funded, and then with FEMA reimbursement on the back end of it, to a health department grant that they've received in order to cover those warehouse expenses and workers. So in the next fiscal year, those won't be coming out of the general fund, they'll be coming out of that grant. And the next slide, under budget initiatives, we are currently going to be upgrading our sirens and siren cabinets. We have a lot of sirens that were installed in the 70s and 80s that had steel cabinets that are failing. Those cabinets are being replaced by aluminum cabinets, but they're very costly, and there's a supply chain issue. So we're asking for $160,000 for over 5 years, in order to replace those cabinets, so that the entire county can once again be covered under those sirens.
Just want to note, it's not just the cabinet, there's hardware.
Yeah, there's a lot
inside
of-
there as
yeah.
well, it's not just the.
Yeah, there's cabinets and circuitry and all kinds of stuff in there. And then we're going to be also refurbishing, we have 4 hazmat vehicles that were purchased by the county under a grant in 2003. They are in the community actually working to respond to hazmat incidents within the county. Those vehicles are 19 years old now and in need of refurbishment. 1 is being refurbished this year. We're not asking for more money that's in our current budget for repair of those vehicles. We're using that repair money, however, to refurbish those 4 vehicles to hopefully, well, not to hopefully, we are going to get 10 more years of service out of those vehicles by doing the refurbishment now. So we're going to do that over the next 4 years, 1 a year. Challenges is those siren and hazmat projects. Because of supply chain issues, we may be asking for a budget carryover for this year's budget going into the next year because it's hard to get those parts. We've been replacing the siren cabinets in the last couple of years, been doing 1 or 2 a year under our normal maintenance budget, but we're not able to keep up with the rate of decline of those cabinets. So that's why we're asking for the additional funding. But for this year, we are unable to get them. We had 1 cabinet, 1 that was destroyed, 1 siren that was destroyed in Commerce Township this year. That was replaced by one of the ones we keep in stock. We keep 2 in stock. It was a car crash.
Car crash.
Yeah, we keep 2 in stock at the company that does the repairs. And one of those 2 went for that, and we still have been unable to replace the other one because of supply chain issues. So that, and then the current vehicle that we're trying to refurbish this year, they're unable to get the parts until probably October. So we'll be asking for a carryover in the budget for that. And then for anticipated IT projects, we've been working closely with IT to do cyber training and cyber exercises over the last few years this year. We're going to continue doing that in conjunction with IT. We are working on a cyber exercise, actually 2 of them, 1 for August and 1 for September.
So, start with building safety and our numbers here. We have 29 total employees, 4 PT&Es. We are a 24/7 operation, so we have to keep a dispatcher in the seat or individuals inside of this building 24 hours a day. We do that with the numbers you see. There's 0 for the VSEP program for us. And on ours, the big project we're working on this year out of the capital improvement plan is the access control upgrade. So if you've been around Complex, you have your card, And on your card, you have the magnetic strip on the back, and then it also has the contactless proximity card, so you can beep into some and you have to slide into others. We want to convert that into one system. And once we do that, the encryption's higher, and we can redesign the card so that maybe we'll change, and I see you smiling, so maybe you can help me do that, but we'll redesign the card and we'll get some.
You don't want me working.
We'll get some additional software too with this upgrade. So we'll have more things we can do with the cards. But we have two different systems on Complex right now, and it's very difficult to make any upgrades when you have two different, and depending on what building you go into, you've seen that. All the equipment is end of life. It's been around since the late 80s, early 90s, and there's many options we can't utilize because of that. So we're really looking forward to upgrading that this year. When we do that, it'll allow us to integrate with the alarm systems and the camera systems, and right now we can't do any of that, but we'll be able to enhance what we're doing. And I'm sure I'm the first one to say that supply chain issues are causing us some issues there, but getting the hardware may be a challenge, but we look forward to pushing forward with that project. And I think I did all right. I didn't miss a slide with my button here, so we're on questions.
So that's an overview of both our budgets, so we're open to.
All right. Well, we'll start with Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Moss.
You all spoke on a few things, so I may, if you answered this, just repeat the answer to me, okay? First question is, do we expect FEMA to continue support to counties with their pandemic response for 2023?
So right now they're at 90%, I mentioned.
Okay,
I would
that's what
expect sometime here in the near future that will drop down to 75%, which
Okay.
is the norm for FEMA. Again, we'll still have enough donations that we won't physically have to pay for that 75%. I do expect, unless numbers go drastically worse, I would expect that 75%, that change will come this year, and then the emergency in general will end at some point in this fiscal year. That's just my guess, but I do expect at some point it's going to end.
Okay. And then, according to the county executive recommended budget, only 14% of the department's budget is allocated to operating expenses. With your budget being so limited in scope for operational expenses, how do you propose to try to increase public notification and alerting, basically based on your goals that you provided for us?
A couple ways. One of the main ones we're looking at is partnering with our community. So we changed early in the pandemic to a new notification system, and we pay for use of that system for countywide. So our goal is going to be to partner with some of the local communities, allow them to have access to the system. So I'll use Troy as an example. Troy uses Code Red, the same one we do. Troy pays about $30,000 a year for Code Red. If we partner with Troy, we could give them access to the same features. We only allow them to use it for people that are registered for Troy, and we could probably give it to them at about a third of the cost. And then we also get access to their set of people for in case of a large-scale broad emergency. So it would then in turn actually help fund ours a little bit and save Troy money at the same time and increase the number of people in the public that we would reach.
All right, thank you.
That's good.
Oh, one more thing. I probably should know this, but what is KPI? What does that stand for, KPI?
Key performance indicator.
There we
Oh,
go.
thank
Good
you.
job, Rob.
Sorry, I didn't know the acronym.
It's just what are we
I was-
measuring to?
Yeah.
I was trying to find, I'm like, I should probably know this, but whatever.
Sean invented it about a year
I
ago.
didn't know what it was at first either.
What the heck is that? Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as opposed to KPMs, which are key performance metrics, which are, of course, something completely different. All right. I guess it's a general question, is that what percentage, I mean, obviously, ballpark, of the revenue of this department is essentially federal pass-through stuff? Like, a lot, because I'm looking, for instance, in actual, like in 22, you've got your adopted and amended is up, by $9 billion.
Yeah.
You're basically a federal pass-through, right?
Outside of the pandemic, our normal budget is a little over $2 million. of which there is still, 2 of those positions are fully funded so we're probably, our normal budget, forget the $7 million from FEMA, we're probably closer to 20 to 25% funded with grants.
Grants, by grants, you're talking like all money from, wherever.
Yes, sir.
Derived. Great. So now this is just one sort of in the kind of down. I'm looking at, this is in the big book. It's I go this way. It would be on the internal services. You've got building space cost allocation. And I'm looking at this. You've got it, for instance, in fiscal year 2021, it's 91, and then it goes up to, at the end of the period, it's up to 121.73. That's almost a 75% increase to your building space cost allocation. Are you expecting to need that much more space? That's a lot, 75%.
So right now, safety is housed in a different building than emergency management. So we've been working on a plan with them to move safety over into our building. Right now, there's a space that used to be held by U.S. Commerce in the front half of our building. And so we would then be in the same space. So what you're seeing right now is you're not seeing safety's cost in there. Their cost is rolled into facilities and maintenance. So once that moved over and we're all in one building, then those costs would increase and they would come off, I would guess.
Why do you want them all in one building? I mean, emergency management. I mean, what if, like, you have them spread out? I mean, I would think the ultimate disaster. What if Godzilla comes and steps on one of them? At least you got the other one.
Well, it doesn't mean we won't keep a separate space that we can't have equipment.
Absolutely.
But the advantage it does give us, for example, when last year we had 7 activations, tornadoes. So when that happens, safety is busy. They're answering the phones for Water Resources Commission. They're also answering our phone calls. We're checking with them. This would bring, our on-call person would come in, be in the same communications room with that dispatch, and now they're able to help and offset each other as opposed to our person is calling them, their person is trying to call ours. Now they're in the same space working together. We also, one of the proposals last year, when we put a position in there that could be shared between the two, doing IDs, helping manage our front desk, helping doing SARA Title III plans, the reason that we said we could split that between the 2 departments is because we would eventually be in a shared space and they would be able to help cover duties from both. So we're trying to gain some efficiencies there as well.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little speculative, but if you've ever had dinner on Windows on the World, I got to say it's the best view in the city. All right, thank you.
All right. Next up, I have Commissioner Long.
Yeah, I just have, did you have a budget task to decrease this year?
So the safety side had significant cuts as they were kind of part of facilities and maintenance and positions were cut. I will say we were fortunate that Kyle, we were significantly over in many line items last year with the pandemic. So they did not force us into a cut because they were in turn reallocating another $7 million into our budget for the pandemic. So safety side, yes. Emergency management side, no.
Safety side, was this open positions also, or what was it?
So there were support positions that helped both safety and other parts of facilities and maintenance, and those were positions that were eliminated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else from the commission have questions for the group? Okay, I just, Commissioner Moss asked about the building space, which is good. And fuel anticipation charges, I had made a note, but I don't remember what that referred to, so. Oh, well. We all know how that.
I thought you were going to remember it when you wrote it.
I did. Okay, well, I guess I don't have anything else to ask. Commissioner Charles.
I was going to ask you as you walk by me, but I figure I'll make it on the record. Are you in charge of the first Saturday siren? Is that the count?
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And then if you hear it other than on a first Saturday, then...
So that's That's an outdoor, we always make a point to say an outdoor warning siren. That's designed for people that aren't in a location where they have access to news. So that's a warning to tell you to go inside, seek shelter, and seek more information, which means turn on the news, turn on, if you have a weather app, turn on those things and get more information. We're a large county, and the last time we activated the sirens, we had tornadoes near one end of the county and nothing on the other. We do weather changes, especially as it seems to come here across from the counties to the west. So we activate for the county, and again, that's to tell people to seek more information from shelter.
That was I did have a question about that because the last one you activated was at like 5 minutes to midnight, I think.
Yes.
And it was for something in Fenton.
And Fenton and Holly and.
Right, and I happen to live on the south end of the county, and so all my friends the next day were like, what was that all about? Well, I think the sirens are good for the whole county, and that's the right answer, right?
We see a lot less of what you might call tornado watches now. The Weather Service, when it used to be, okay, the conditions are right. So the last couple tornadoes we've had have come almost out of the blue with little warning.
And then, you're not just tornadoes. You're like, you would hear that siren for, let's say, imminent destruction. Yeah.
No, in Oakland, we only use them for weather. So it could be straight line winds sustained in excess of 70 miles an hour. So it's their weather sirens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Interesting times we live in.
I know. It is interesting times. Okay, well, if nobody else has any other questions, I guess we're done with emergency management and safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
for all of your work and your preparation and all that you do for all of us. Okay.
Actually, we'll probably take a little bit longer.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we're going to take a 10-minute recess since we're a little bit early and give everybody a chance to get organized again. And get county executive group time to get over here.
Oh, I know that term. I wrote that.
we're not done, then we'll still have a quorum.
Are you ready
so.
now?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay.
Okay, I am going to call the meeting of the Finance Committee back to order, and just to make it legal, we're going to call roll again.
Okay, so Cavell will be back shortly. Cobalt?
Here.
McGillivray? Here. Powell?
Here.
Charles?
Present.
Long?
Here.
Moss? Present. Markham?
Here.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, great. So next up today, we have the County Executive's Office, including the Office of Environmental Sustainability. And the presenter is April Lynch, among others. So,
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you. So just a friendly reminder, on the executive budget, we have multiple programs underneath that include everything from corporation counsel to environmental sustainability. I think we have the communications is under there, and DEI. We have one more, don't we? Indigent defense. So all. Oh, they moved into their own. I'm sorry. So anyway, there's multiple programs that each of them are coming individually. So today's primary focus for this would be environmental sustainability, or if there's any other general questions about the executive, but we're the outlier for today would be environmental sustainability. The rest are coming.
Separate.
Yeah, they all have their own program. It's called a program budget, so they'll go over all of those individually.
Okay.
If that's okay. But if we have Kyle here as well, if there's any general questions about the executive's budget that we can answer that maybe not fit in one of those buckets, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So with that, I'm going to turn that over to Erin Quattel, who is our Chief Environmental Sustainability Officer, and she's going to go over all of the new items and the budget for the environmental sustainability.
Great, thank you. So since this is new and this is a new budget allocations and everything like that, I thought I'd just quickly go over what sustainability is again. This is how I think of sustainability as its foundation. It is the social, which is those social variables, economic and environmental, and how all of those intersect. So thinking about the built and natural environment, the sustainable economic development, and then our equitable social environment. I know I haven't presented formally on our sustainability plan. We're still in the drafting process, but I wanted to just quickly show you again those buckets which the sustainability plan is organized: sustainable governance, health and wellness, facility and fleet decarbonization, high performance buildings, and open space ecosystems and connectivity. And you'll see that this connects to the rest of the strategic framework as well as some of the other things proposed. For our headline KPIs, I just wanted to briefly go over that again. Those are the key performance indicators. We have 3 for environmental sustainability, and the first one is to protect our drinking water by looking at the number of water service lines that may contain lead, reduce county government emissions and energy use by looking at the CO2 emissions from energy consumption, and promote cleaner transportation alternatives with the percentage of residents commuting to work other than a single occupancy vehicle. These are just snippets from the dashboard. You can view these now on our website. This is an overview of the water service lines as of October or December of last year. This is information that is collected and reported to Eagle. So this is all the state information for this area. This is just the metrics for the cleaner transportation alternatives based on some census data. So this is as of 2019, and you can see the distribution. The top is a carpool, which means car, truck, or van. Public transportation is at the bottom of that in that brown color. The line that's kind of moving upward in a line is the work from home, which is blue, and then the orange line that is kind of in the middle is the taxi, motorcycle, bicycle, and other modes of transportation as a baseline. And this is something that a lot of folks haven't seen quite yet. We just completed our greenhouse gas emission inventory, and this is our, we used a baseline of 2018. And what you can see is the total metric tons of what our greenhouse gases are, and then below that, how it is distributed between everything that we have, buildings and facilities being the greatest emitters, and then vehicle fleet, and so on and so forth. The service level KPIs, which are kind of that step down from the headline KPIs, are the following. So looking at alternative fuel vehicles for our county fleet, the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions of our county campus specifically, percent material diverted from the landfill, so how much are we recycling, number of transit routes connected specifically to Oakland County properties, so that's that connection to alternative transportation opportunities, and then percent procured material with sustainability or DEI and/or DEI certification. So really thinking about how we're spending our money and making sure that we're considering sustainability and DEI. The three main budget goals for sustainability, as outlined for this next year, is to expand the Office of Sustainability to include more staffing and support. As you all know, I'm still an office of one, so I would greatly appreciate some additional support staff. Support future climate action planning work with grant writing support, special events, community engagement, and technical assistance from partners, such as Oakland University, which has been approved by the board previously for that formal partnership with Oakland University. And then finally, to advance the community's strategic framework by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, supporting and improving clean transportation options, and ensuring healthy and clean water through infrastructure improvements and natural resource conservation. My key budget requests, like I had mentioned, some staff, so proposed for 1 full-time equivalent senior sustainability manager and 2 part-time equivalent sustainability specialists. Additional new investments is that Oakland University formal partnership, which has already been approved, but that's a not to exceed of $100,000, and then some community engagement support. And I'll go into each of these, I think, a little bit in more detail further. So like I had mentioned, that Oakland University partnership has already been approved, but it is to advance sustainability throughout Oakland County, to leverage those educational resources and think about the community education and research, think about mutual areas of interest for sustainability and research opportunities, and then strengthen the partnership with our local higher education institution. The community engagement support is to help with some future grant writing opportunities, certainly the city's, village, and townships sustainability engagement, regional partnership collaboration, also collaboration with the nonprofit and foundation stakeholders, as well as economic development and businesses. This is just an overview. I won't go through all of these, but just kind of some highlights of things that are either new and ongoing, kind of what's for the future and what that might look like. So some examples of what's going on right now is finalizing that sustainability plan and putting that plan into action, looking at a regional electric vehicle study, which Oakland County is participating in with Wayne County as well as Macomb County, and a few other things that you can see below. Some of the things related to IT specifically, I don't really have any software updates or anything like that, but more of utilizing our GIS system and our expertise that we have on staff to really look at the data a little bit differently and put it in a framework of sustainability. Also in relation to climate action planning, kind of looking at the different trends in the region. And then potential contracts, I don't have anything, but I didn't want to say that I didn't have anything, I suppose, was looking at potential contracts, again, for grant writers or other support for future federal funding. There's a lot coming through, as you all know, through the infrastructure bill, as well as some other potential funding, and then any foundation support, as well as potential contracting with any subject matter experts to advance that climate action planning, things like electric vehicles, air quality, renewable energy, and so forth. So that is it. That was a lot, but that's all I have for you today. I welcome your questions.
I just want to add one more thing for clarity. So because of some of the goals that we have this year and some of the things that we'll be working on, we made a decision to put her extra staff request in actually the facilities budget. They'll have its own program under there, but we just wanted to have that full-on conversation here because facilities is going to take up the entire 45 minutes tomorrow. But that's where it will be housed, which will allow us to do some costing throughout, throughout the county organization as a whole under facilities as well.
So when I looked at facilities information, one of my questions was, what is the net personnel increase that I was going to ask them that I would expect this would be?
There will be some of it, yep. And she wanted to do her presentation here, so we could get into the specifics about her request here, but then we'll be able to show you where it fits in tomorrow's budget.
Okay. I'll open it up. We'll start with Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Kowal, followed by Commissioner Moss.
So on page 58 in our book here, it says that a decrease of $50,000 to special projects, which was transferred to HR Administration Division for DEI special event supplies. One, I want to understand why are we even entertaining that position be moved under HR? Because I think that all this time, and some of the commissioners can agree, we thought that that would be a separate entity or program which runs itself. And for over a year or two, however long Robin was here, she had been trying to get budgetary amounts so that she can have a staff, and it never was granted. So I want to understand, why are we moving that under HR? Because I don't think that's a good place for it. I think it needs to be somewhere else. But I want to understand where you all mind frame was with that move, and just why did that happen? And why is any of this movement really happening? And she just left, so I'm just trying to figure out why we haven't paused on this whole operation.
Sure, so I can give a little bit more information. We have DI scheduled to discuss during the HR budget, but we're actually keeping Robin's position and many of that position and some of her current costs still in the executive's budget, but we moved the request for a few of the extra, like I think there was an extra position and a few of those special events for DEI in the HR budget, just because there's so much going on internally as well. So that's probably like phase one of some of the support that she'll need.
Is there any way that can all just be separated from HR, period? As any of her positions, anything with her, can it not just go under HR? I'm just asking.
We can review that. We can review that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you have any other questions, Commissioner Powell?
Well, y'all may have alluded to this, but at the county level, with the $650,000 budgeted investment for fiscal year 2023, what outcomes can be expected from the climate action plan?
That's a really good question. So climate action plans are plans to really look critically at our greenhouse gases, our natural resources, our community members, kind of referring back to that first slide. Sustainability includes our social, our environmental, and our economic. And so what a climate action plan does is it looks at a lot of data. It's very data heavy, and then it starts to put plans and processes in place to help with that. So for example, it could have actions that look like stormwater mitigation strategies, green infrastructure, maybe some additional tree plantings and things like that. It could look at renewable energy and the planning and what that looks like for Oakland County as a whole to help reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. And then from an equity standpoint, make sure that future impacts from climate change and other development are not impacting our most vulnerable communities, and really thinking about and being very strategic with how do we make sure that air quality is present and water quality is present. And so it's a comprehensive plan similar to other planning efforts, but it takes a very science-based and focus on climate and other data sets like that. So outcomes of that, certainly to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but also improve our environment, improve our social environment, and to help start to really integrate sustainability into our business and economic development here in Oakland County.
Okay, and then I do have one more. What are the key performance indicators for the Diversity Abilities Program investment of the $250 grand?
I'll be talking about that in Human Resources next week.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have Commissioner Kowal, and then Commissioner Moss, and then Commissioner McGilvery.
Okay, just a real quick one. What do you mean by fugitive emissions? And should we be looking for a one-armed man?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So fugitive emissions are, just like you would lose energy, for example, from like your actual power plant to it coming to your home. That's what it looks at. So if you have your gas line, for example, you can't always detect leaks or things like that. There's always going to be some sort of leak. So that fugitive emission would just be like emissions that are occurring from ancillary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. One question. Can you define equity? Use
Sure.
that word a lot. What, can you define it?
Sure. Equity would be making sure that everyone has the opportunity to advance and prosper. Everybody has the ability and the same resources to advance and prosper. It's really taking an intentional look at a people-centered focus and centering that in decision-making.
Everybody has the same resources to advance and prosper.
Some might need more than
I'm
others.
sorry.
Some might need more than others.
Some might need more
Mhm.
resources than others.
Mhm.
And how is that determined?
Oh, man, how much time do we have to talk about equity, I think? Yeah, so it just, it really depends. It depends on the community, it depends on the disparities, it depends on the historic and, privilege that we have as a society in westernized culture. I mean, it's a packed topic.
And so the role of the county in equity is to basically equalize outcomes
things, or?
Yeah, equity, I would say that it's definitely giving everybody the opportunity, and to April's point, it does, might require additional resources for other populations versus others, but that is also based on a lot of the historic disparities that have impacted our community members disproportionately.
Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner?
That's it.
Okay, Commissioner McGilvery.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how many electric vehicles are used in the county fleet?
I think we have 2.
2. Out of a total of how many vehicles in the county fleet?
Oh, good question. Stump me on how many we have. I think we have over
It's about 900 something.
1,000. Yeah, I was going to say about 1,000.
How about chargers on the campus? Are there any EV chargers?
We
on the
have
campus?
2 wall pack chargers in the central services, but we're going to be installing additional chargers this year.
Okay, the reason I ask these questions is, Michigan, Detroit is capital of Motor City. And there's a big push for electric vehicles, but yet we have nothing on our county campus.
Yes.
The 2 that you might mention, they're probably in a closet someplace.
In the garage, yes.
When we were putting in this parking lot out here, they repaved it a few years back. They were supposed to put chargers out there, and still not up.
Mm-hmm.
No, my Volt is right there, not plugged into
There's
anything.
a Mustang right there.
And I'm just wondering, with the future of electric vehicles, why are we waiting? What is the deal?
That's a good question. So we actually have 2 different charging locations being installed this year. One is right out here in that parking lot, actually. There's going to be 2 dual port charging stations outside of the Commissioner's building as well as outside of the executive office because there's repaving and reconstruction happening for those parking areas, and they're going to be installed in those 2 parking locations. Then from the sustainability program and working with the facilities team, we're identifying other places throughout the county based on the use of the buildings as well as when we're having those new repaving projects come up so that we can have a little bit of economies of scale with the construction process to start implementing EV charging stations. So it is definitely on my radar to install here on campus.
I hope so, because I'm really disappointed with what the county's done. I mean, really disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to buy an electric vehicle when they can't charge any place in the state of Michigan?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you own a Tesla and they have their special chargers.
Right, absolutely.
So I'm real concerned about that, and
Mhm.
how do we ever expect electric vehicles to move forward in the future if there are no chargers around?
No, I agree. It's
Coming.
It's outside of the budget, but there are a few things that we're working on at the county, partnering with the economic development team. They have a whole entire mobility group, and as I mentioned earlier, Oakland County is partnering with the Detroit Regional Partnership for a regional EV study that's ongoing, that just started about a month ago.
Thanks.
Good question, Commissioner. Our tech team asks me to ask everybody to make sure you're speaking into your mics because it's not picking everybody up, so if we would do that. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I don't know if you're looking at the button anymore. I had a.
Oh, yeah, no, I was not, so.
And I think you touched on my question, which was about staff, and it's been really the only thing I've heard in terms of takeaways from the community. Oh, they just said about mics. And so I will then look forward to hearing from facilities on it. But it sounds like, much to my chagrin, and I guess maybe I didn't ask more important questions last year because we were so excited to bring you on. But gosh, I didn't mean to bring you on without any rows and holes in your boat. So to your point about things not really moving, so I just want to say that I'm aware, and I think our community is aware, and they're like, oh, they hired a sustainability officer, but they didn't give her any help. So I think that's something we got to do. Otherwise, it's just lipstick on a pig, I think is the saying.
They gave her a one plug-in charger. I mean, that's...
Now go do more.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in there, because I would dispute the notion that we haven't done anything.
Even with one person, Aaron has already implemented the campus-wide RFP in terms of that proposal. And I don't think we should be blamed for the lack of effort by the previous administration in terms of charging stations. As she said, we have plans to do the charging stations on the campus, and we're engaged in what is a really large effort regionally to figure out a mapping of EV charging stations. So I don't think it would be accurate for this committee to say that we haven't done a lot in the environmental sustainability space, even in the short tenure that Erin has been with us. We certainly want to add to her support, but we have implemented this as a priority for the administration.
Madam Chair?
You still have the floor, Commissioner.
So just so it's clear for our listening body, I think the commissioner said that they were disappointed in the outputs, and I'm only reflecting what I'm hearing from our actual residents. So we've got to do more, or at least make it seem like we're doing something.
Thank you.
Point taken. Any other commissioners with comments or questions? I have a couple. The sustainability study.
Yes.
When do we think that's going to be done?
Yeah, so we're in the final processes of the draft review. Coming soon is going to be a more digestible draft. It was almost 150 pages, so we're working on a story map that is going to be made public to be a little bit more interactive and talk a little bit more about that, and that should be coming by the end of the month. So I'd say external review within the next couple months. They're slotted to wrap up everything up. Planning on giving a presentation to the internal executive staff about the greenhouse gas emission inventory, which I expect will then come to the commission as well. That was just finalized about 2 weeks ago.
And the idea is that with, for example, the greenhouse gas emissions, ultimately we'd be measuring and trying to reduce overall and and so on. As I drive around the campus, there is a lot of impervious pavement everywhere that we're no longer going to put 4,000 cars in. So I don't know if there are plans, and maybe it's a discussion for facilities, but you know, can we convert some of this back to usable green space, or as we're looking at other facilities that other organizations are looking at, you know, than you know, where can we put this thing or that building or whatever. I would hope that all of this is being integrated together so that we're looking at reducing our carbon footprint, we're looking at our emissions, and things like being ready for the electric vehicle wave that's going to wash over us. I mean, 2030 to be 50% electric vehicles. That sounds like a long way away, but it's really not. I'm not having a hard time visualizing that, you know, being prepared for that. So anyway, that's on the sustainability study. The other is the whole question of grant writing. And maybe this is more a question for Hillary or, you know, the leadership in general, but as we're watching the infrastructure bill come down, and we're watching, now we're going to see hopefully, you know, what's it called, the IRA bill, and we've seen ARPA. There are many, many matching requirements that are required to draw down this money, which requires grant writers knowing what they're doing. And we talked about this a year ago. We talked about maybe putting a grant writer on the Board of Commissioners staff, but we decided not to do that, you know, we'd take a look at the administration. But I just think that if we don't address this now, you know, staffing grant writing as an entity, we're going to be behind the 8 ball in a place we don't want to be. That's my sense of it.
Yes. Thank you. It's really the biggest reason why I put some funding towards that and proposed that is so that I could have some support for that grant rating, especially in sustainability, but to the point of the entire county. I talked with other colleagues, and it's a lot. I mean, we want to be competitive. We want to apply for those grants, and there's just not enough hours in the day sometimes with everything else that we're doing.
I know the courts have grants they'd like to apply for, but they don't have they tell us they don't have the staffing to, really. And I can just see it with some of the other stuff through SEMCOG and the transportation and just everything that's going to come rolling down. We're going to need to be staffed to do that. So I don't know where that fits exactly, Hillary, but,
That fits in Kyle's area, management and budget. That's where we put the money last year
Okay.
for that function.
Kyle, okay. All right, those were the two things that I had under this period. So anybody else have anything they want to ask these folks? If not, I guess we're done with the county executive section. Thanks for coming today. And
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Similarly to the other folks up here, if you guys have any questions between now and the final vote, please let me know. I'm happy to answer anything, provide additional information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, they're going to take their time to switch over. So next up is public communications, which is Hillary and,
They'll be here at 3. I think it's
Okay.
supposed to be 3:20, but they're on their way over now.
That's
We should
fine.
be able to start early.
that's fine. You let us know when everybody's here, since we're ahead of schedule. Eileen's happy about that. Yeah, I'm supposed to go door knocking tonight. I'm like, really?
For who? Which candidate?
For Rosemary Bear, Kelly Breen, and supposedly me, except I had no campaign lit, so it would just be the two of them.
Well, you can say who you are.
I know, wear my T-shirt. That's what I said, I'll wear my T-shirt.
I know.
I'm always torn.
No, We are now moving into the County Executive Public Communications Department. I know that because I see all our communications people sitting at the end of our row. Welcome, everybody. Each of these is running about 30 minutes-ish, 30 to 40 minutes. And we'll let you tell us about yourself and your departments, and then I'll open it up to the commissioners to ask questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. When we were preparing for this presentation, we realized that we're actually at our one-year anniversary. It was about 2 days ago that the Board of Commissioners voted to create the Department of Public Communications. So we thought that was kind of good timing for us to be before you today. The budget that we're going to talk about later in the presentation is very much status quo. Since you created the department just last year, we're not making any new, major requests. We just really had 8 months of operation, and so, we don't really have enough history to know whether we need to make additional requests. So our budget request and our budget is pretty status quo, but we do have that later in the presentation. But what we wanted to do is tell you a little bit about the previous last year that we've had, and also remind you a little bit of how DPC is structured, how it was envisioned, and just how the stand-up is going. So before us, you have all of the senior leaders of the Department of Communications. And Kathy's going to kind of explain, maybe you can introduce folks as you go, the different divisions within DPC. Charlotte Fisher left the county employment in the late spring, so we're without a director at this point. We are looking for a new director, but in the interim, I think you will agree that this leadership team that is before you today is really extremely competent and talented. So we just have a brief kind of year in review for you, and a little bit of a review of what we envision and how DPC is coming together. So we just divided it all up, and you'll see everyone give a bit of the presentation.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and learn a little bit more about the Department of Communications. Public Communications, as Hillary said, we're just about a year old. But even before that, the vote that you took last year, the people on this team have been the messaging arm for the county. For the county executive, for the departments, and support for the other elected officials as well. We ensure that our internal and external communications are consistent, effective, reach the intended audiences, and align with the county's brand and policies. The DPC consists of 5 different divisions. First, we've got community engagement, led by manager Ashley McBride Braswell. This team builds relationships with cities, villages, and townships, nonprofit organizations, schools, faith-based institutions, community service organizations, to connect them with county services and resources, and so we can learn how we can better serve them. We've got the creative operations team led by Pam Tremble, and this team manages the county's brand through graphic design, videos, email communications. The team also provides incredible support to departments across Oakland County. Marketing communications led by Officer Caitlin Keeler, who coordinates the digital teams in county departments for social media messaging and campaigns, as well as working with departments to ensure consistent and effective content on the county's website, oakgov.com. Media relations, I'm sure you all know our Public Information Officer, Bill Mullen, who builds relationships and is in daily communications with the media. He organizes press conference and other media events as well, writes press releases, media advisories, all sorts of things. And then finally, the Strategic Communications Division is, I'm Kathy Gray, and I'm the Strategic Communications Advisor. I help to develop communications strategies. I write and edit for the county executive and other departments, as well as for the DPC. Next, we'll give you a little brief update on what we've done in the past year, and Ashley will kick us off.
Hi, Commissioners. It's so great to be here today. As Kathy said, prior to the board approving our department, we all worked together closely during the pandemic. And I'm going to highlight our work in the last year, specifically in regards to our COVID-19 response. As you can see from the slide, we have about 4 highlighted campaigns that we've worked on. DPC worked closely with health to coordinate COVID communications and messaging, which included weekly meetings, content for the COVID-19 and vaccine websites, and the 1x1 campaign, which is pictured here. Community engagement, which the division that I lead, collaborated with health to find partners and locations for many of our vaccine clinics, small and large, from churches to community centers, and even at the soccer stadium. And also, we help with outreaching to communities and CVTs with flyers and social media. Carolyn and I last summer were pounding the pavement, giving out flyers, trying to get the community to come and get those vaccines. Lastly, we also did the COVID-19 Tribute and Tribute Walk, which was a collaborative effort that we worked in partnership with Parks, IT, and the board to honor those that we lost during the pandemic. That event was really well received by the residents, and it was truly touching if you got a chance to witness it. And so here we just have a couple of those events, and we're just going to move on to our major events and outreach. So in 2021, as you all know, we launched the first ever virtual State of the County, which was streamed from the Baldwin Theater in Royal Oak. DPC produced and broadcast the virtual State of the event via the county website. The social media response was well received on Facebook and Twitter. The post reached over 19,000 people and made over 137,000 impressions. We later returned to an in-person 2022 State of the County. That event, if you all were there, was standing room only, and it was a live broadcast on TV and social media. We've also done some great things with Juneteenth. In 2021, we held the first ever Juneteenth event that was supported with DEI. And then in 2022, we did some further education around Juneteenth this year with social media amplification. We helped and partnered with economic development with Motorvella. We coordinated promotion and live social media coverage with the economic development department. Also, and lastly, community engagement hosted several telephone town halls, quarterly meetings with CVTs, state and federal elected officials, and we had over 300 touch points in the community, ranging from us to attending community events, town halls, meeting with local elected officials, residents, commissioners, nonprofit, faith-based, you name it. We were out there in the community. I want to move on to special programming. And here we have just highlighted a few of our kind of branding events and campaign and special things that we've done. You have right here the strategic framework launch and our ClearPoint dashboard, which is in current development. The ClearPoint dashboard is where you would see our 7 strategic goals, our key community indicators, and is an ongoing development. And I'm sure you've seen posts from that from other departments. Next, we have the branding of Always Moving Forward, which included logo and graphic creation, key messages, and website edits. That was a natural progression from Oakland Together to Always Moving Forward. Lastly, we have community engagement led the relaunching of our Oakland Together 40 Under 40 with the new application, a more streamlined process, a return to an in-person reception at the State of the County, which was well received and well attended, and award receptions. Last year we had 124 submissions. And actually, lastly, was our Shop Local Small Business Saturday. We really had to coordinate this event and push, for small business to shop safely and small during this holiday season. So DPC coordinated a news conference at Vitrine in downtown Berkeley to kick off the season, including live social media, blog, and produced videos from the event. And we got a lot of great news coverage from there. So as you can see, DPC has been working this last year. And next, Caitlin will finish up with this section of the PowerPoint.
Thanks, Ashley, and good afternoon, Commissioners. So one of the main functions of the Public Communications Department is public education. And one of the ways we do that is by publishing and promoting content. We work with content creators with our teams and across the county to ensure content is consistent and effective and is about our government, our services, programs in the community. Our media relations team, for example, has issued 143 news releases or media advisories, conducted more than 12 news conferences, and answers daily media calls and interviews. Our creative operations team has fulfilled over 600 projects, anything from billboards to videos, flyers, report, and graphics requests in between. DPC is also responsible for maintaining the oakgov.com website, where we also work again with countywide content creators. And we have over 2,500 web pages with 3.6 million visitors annually. So we work with them to make sure our content is accessible, functional, no matter what the person's ability is, if they need a screen reader assistance with accessibility and alt tags, or if they're coming to us from a smartphone, which over half of our visitors are on smartphones.
Can I ask you to speak more into the microphone?
Yes.
Just pull it closer
pull it to you too, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you need me to repeat any of that?
No, that's fine.
Thank
It's
you.
just our tech people nudge me.
All right. So then our social media, the county has a robust social media presence, over 120 accounts across all departments, elected officials. Our DPC team is responsible for the OakGov parent brand accounts, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the executive office, Facebook and Twitter, as well as the Oakland County blog. Together over the last year, the team's posted over 7,800 posts on those two brand accounts, including 48 blogs, making almost 6 million impressions. We also send out email newsletters and SMS or text messages. So we partner with IT to administer that Gov delivery product that a lot of the departments and elected officials use, but we're responsible for the Always Moving Forward newsletter that's sent out bi-monthly every other week. We've sent about 25 newsletters in the past year to 37,144 subscribers. In addition to publishing and promoting content, we also strive to provide excellent customer service, whether that's contacting us through the help hotline, phone or email, the contact us form on the website, or through social media messages. We want to respond to them fast and friendly, connect them to whatever department or service they need or community member. Not only that, we take what we learn from them, whether they frequently ask questions and the trends, and try and be proactive, get that information out to them first so we can reduce the number of community service questions coming in. And then lastly, for public education, we do a lot of engagement and escalation. We're always monitoring for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'd love to highlight and amplify the good news the departments, elected officials, and community are doing. Like, for example, we're going to be highlighting Ava Swiss, who's going to perform live on AGT tonight, so tune in and vote for her. But then on the other side, we're also looking for threats. For example, the copycat school threats after the Oxford situation, which we would escalate to the Sheriff's Office and Emergency Operations Center. So that's our public education year in review. Pam's going to take it over from here for employee communication.
Very quick question, if you don't mind. What is escalation?
Escalation? So that's just a phone call or an email where it comes from my team who saw it, the first people that saw it on social media, to either, Bill if it's a public information emergency, or the Sheriff's Office has an innovation technology team. So just working with those partners. We even escalated to out-of-state police departments for a potential suicide watch.
Okay, can you use another word? I always thought of escalation in different contexts. What is,
Sure.
It means somebody calling somebody or?
Referral, maybe?
Referral, that's a
There we go.
great, thank
Okay.
you so much, Hillary.
That works.
Referral, thank you.
Employee communication. So we have worked with HR over the past year to develop a more effective process to communicate with our employees. One of those tools that we use that I'm sure lands in your own inboxes is the bi-weekly Telegraph newsletter. And in those emails that you receive information about updated policy information or information that you need to be able to do your job well. We also have a section called Employee Spotlight, where we're able to connect employees with their coworkers on a more personal level. So for instance, we've recently done a spotlight on an employee who ran the Boston Marathon, or a group of employees over at the courts who pooled some money together to send one of their coworkers back to see her family in Albania. So we're able to tell stories about employees on a personal level to increase morale and let us get to know our coworkers a little bit better. Those employee spotlight stories are actually located on the Telegraph intranet website. And this past year, we worked together with HR and IT to give the Telegraph a new look and feel. So if you visit the website, you'll see that it's a little bit easier to navigate, and some of the information is front and center on the website that in the past you might have had to look a little bit deeper for. The Equity Council. We do serve a leadership role on the Equity Council in the form of evaluating the communication across the entire county to make sure that what we're producing and getting out to employees as well as the residents is accessible, inclusive, and equitable across all of the avenues of communication that we have in the county. The newly formed Behavioral Threat Assessment Team, Caitlin is a part of that along with her staffer, Sarah King, who are working with emergency management to identify proactively workplace violence threats and being able to identify those and escalate issues proactively so that they do not become an emergency. The final thing that I want to talk about is employee recognition and employee events that we host throughout the year in collaboration with other departments. For instance, this past spring, we helped the Oak Fit program put together a mental health awareness walk called Stamp Out Stigma, using the sidewalks that are already here on campus to bring employees together with their leaders to just have a leisurely walk around the campus to promote mental health awareness. We also recently worked with IT and management and budget to organize the Workday implementation celebration for the team who worked tirelessly to implement the Workday software. Last summer we had an ice cream day for employees, and this summer we are hosting the employee days at the water park. And if you haven't already made your way to the water park, the last day is tomorrow at Waterford Oaks, so grab your swimsuit and take your family to enjoy that tomorrow. So that's what I have on employee communications, and I am going to pass this now over to Bill to talk about emergency operations.
Thank you, Commissioners. Well, we're especially proud of the work that DPC has done in the Emergency Operations Center this year, even though there's been some very tragic incidents to which it's had to respond. So, you know, really, we're filling the public information officer role in the Emergency Operations Center. In the public information officer in the EOC world is not a person, it's a function. So we go over as a team to basically respond to the event and to ensure vital information flows to our concerned residents and that any misinformation is corrected. In the past year, DPC has staffed 5 incidents in the Emergency Operations Center: the White Lake tornado, the Oxford High School shooting, the 14-mile road water main break, the downtown Holly fire, and the current Hexchrome spill in Wixom. First, let's talk about the current active response to the Hexchrome spill. We are collaborating with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, as well as the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and local partners to shape daily messaging to the media and public about that spill. We published a frequently asked questions page on the county website so that our concerned residents have a place to find the most up-to-date information on a daily basis. And we are coordinating all of these efforts with our local PIO partners to ensure all stakeholders are staying informed and have their questions answered. Next, the 14-mile road water main break is an example of how the DPC collaborates with our regional colleagues during emergencies. The Great Lakes Water Authority in this case was the lead agency. However, so they could focus on their messaging as well as their expertise, we took over the technical aspects of their emergency communications. So, for instance, we did the lifting and of creating and hosting the daily PIO calls on which GLEWA would update the various communities, the hospitals, and the other impacted organizations. We also served as a conduit for GLEWA whenever they had to communicate to the various stakeholders who were affected by the water main break. They just took care of their expertise in writing. We took care of making sure everyone else got the message within that group. And we also launched our own landing page to help our residents understand the timeline for the repair and a place they could check in and understand what's going on. Next, sadly, the Oxford High School shooting. This event in the initial stages demanded all of DPC's resources, but it underscores the diversity of skills we have in the DPC. As Caitlin had mentioned in a broader context before, we monitored social media and shared threats and misinformation with sheriff investigators. We provided technical assistance to the Oakland County prosecutor for her AV needs, both at press conferences and in court. We helped organize news conferences with other elected officials, and especially bright point for the DPC during those initial weeks was community engagement. We assigned an individual to be a liaison in the community out there every day, 7 days a week for a month to ensure not only that the county administration remained informed about any developments out there, but we wanted to make local leaders aware of the services and support the county could provide them. And, you know, we also helped with the Oakland Cares mental health support that was out there. Finally, the White Lake tornado response is worth mentioning because it occurred during the weekend. And interestingly enough, I was out of state on vacation. And everyone else was dispersed across the state, whether they were at weddings, what have you. But by the miracle of modern technology, the DPC was able to pause their days, get a press release out, and get some vital information onto social media that the residents needed to know. So these incidents really demonstrate the breadth and flexibility the DPC has to deliver critical information in a timely manner to the public and other stakeholders during an emergency. One final note, several members of the DPC team, you should know, have training from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and have participated in emergency exercises to help improve our emergency communications response. And I think the results of that training is evident in the work we've done this year with these emergencies. So next, Caitlin's going to tell you more about some of our collaborations around the county. Caitlin?
Thank you, Bill. Our work with the Emergency Operations Center is a really great example of our collaborations across county departments and elected officials. As we're a service-oriented department, and we work across these departments, elected officials, and we've already managed to collaborate with almost every single one of them in the past year. Not only do we support them, but we collaborate and partner with them. So we work with them in their communications and outreach goals to make sure they're effective, reaching the intended audience, on brand, and are accessible. So now I've got 3 slides here, which I'm only going to highlight a few things on each, but I really encourage you to take the time in your leisure to look over them. It represents a tremendous amount of work from this team, our team back in the office, working with the talented communicators across the other departments and elected officials as well. On this first slide, I wanted to highlight the Animal Shelter and Pet Adoption Center. We've worked with them on everything from press conferences, news releases, graphics, photos, videos, and the dog license campaign, and ways to increase adoption with a really cute video is going to be debuting, tomorrow, coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. Next, we've worked with all 3 of the airports a lot on their website and social media content and technical support, and more recently with the Oakland County International Airport for their air show this weekend. Doing a lot of work with their graphics, their flyers, their social and video promotion, and we'll have a team there on the ground for news media coverage and live social media coverage as well. The last example on this slide is Children's Village materials, where we're working to translate all of their materials into 3 different languages. On the next slide, you might be surprised to see facilities management. We actually do a lot of work with them in collaboration, from all the signs you see to the updated banners across campus, the digital displays in public and employee entrances, as well as lighting up the courthouse in observance in support of Ukraine. Additionally, Bill also talked extensively about our work with the Emergency Operations Center, such as the press conference with the prosecutor, the sheriff, and Executive Coulter in this photo. Another example of our collaboration is with the Environmental Sustainability Office. So not only do we partner with that team, but the Earth Day tree planting is a great example. How we also had the Board of Commissioners there, Water Resources there, the Detroit Zoo was there, Royal Oak Township, and I apologize if I'm missing anyone, but that was a great day to highlight what we're doing for the environment in like a tangible Earth Day way and planting a tree. Also, the last photo, kind of leading into the next slide, is the Welcoming Oakland initiative. So we've worked with them to create their website and their social media content and promotions, and also for their Welcoming Week, their news releases to promote that and live social media coverage. Lastly, our last example of a collaboration is actually one of our first requests we received after we became a department last year. The Sheriff's Office reached out with help for their annual report. And Creative Operations did a massive project with them to source the photos and design of their 2020 annual report, so much so that they just finished their 2021 report. So taking collaboration to the next steps is really coordination among the different communicators across the county, and that's where the countywide digital editorial team comes in. This started as a small internal team in IT before COVID, and when COVID hit, it quickly expanded to a daily meeting with executive office, public health, IT, and emergency management. Now it looks something like more like a weekly meeting, expanded to economic development, veterans, workforce, parks, board of commissioners, water resources. And we all have similar audiences and great initiatives that we work to cross-promote, coordinate the timing of our newsletters and social media. For example, we had a robust Black History Month campaign where we were really able to uncover all the different services, things to do, and events that every department elected official office was doing for Black history. For Women's History Month, we featured the women in leadership positions. And we also work for observances throughout the year, ensuring there's consistent graphics for offices closed or any observance. We help cross-promote things like the emergency information and Oak Alert. And a significant win that we worked with the Water Resources Commissioner was their annual art contest for their calendars. And they actually, when we all came together and cross-promoted it, they had their most submissions ever. So not only do we have this coordinated, consistent messaging now across the county, and we're working every day to include more and more of those communicators, but we're also forming relationships and connections. And one of my favorite examples is actually our Veteran Resources team and our Parks team. Through these meetings, they've been able to form a relationship and a bond where Parks has worked with them to supply buses for transportation for vets that need it to their resource fairs, tents, and then most recently, Parks has been attending their resource fairs to help distribute their free vehicle passes to veterans. So just a great example of how we're all coordinating and collaborating with our partners across the county. And next, Kathy's going to go into more detail on our ARP support.
So while COVID was an incredibly difficult challenge for all of us to navigate, it also presented the DPC with some opportunities. It's pretty incredible to have such a significant infusion of federal funding come into the county to help with the response to COVID-19 pandemic. And during 2021 and 2022, we got the second tranche of money from the feds, $244 million, from the federal government, and it was up to the DPC to provide the transparency and assurances to the general public that the money was being spent wisely and effectively. With approval from the board, the money that was designated for one-time projects that could provide transformational change for our residents. The DPC was involved in making sure the public knew about how the money was being spent and what kind of additional services and programming could become available to them. We held press conferences and roundtables, sent out press releases and newsletters, produced videos and daily social media messaging, and wrote dozens of blogs for the website about those new initiatives, including the $27 million into expanded and improved access to mental health services for our residents and students, including some additional resources for the extended Oxford family and students. The Business Forward program with 9 counselors who are expecting to connect with and help more than 4,000 small businesses in their first year. The Oakland 80 Career and Education Navigators, who started connecting with students and adult learners this summer to make sure they get the education, training, scholarships, and support services they need for successful careers. We got an assist from Governor Gretchen Whitmer for a press conference on grants for child care centers and workers to help fill a critical need for our families. And we helped publicize a $1,200 scholarship that more than 300 families have received for child care support. We work closely with the CVTs to make sure they knew about the infrastructure grants that were approved by the board last year to help with water system improvements. 32 communities applied for and got those grants. And as we've discussed before, the DPC has been instrumental in getting the word out about COVID. From the early days of the pandemic, to masking, to grants for individuals, businesses, communities, and organizations, to the vaccine clinics. Through Executive Coulter's newsletter, his many speeches around the county, and graphic elements that have been used by many Oakland County departments, the DPC has been involved in spreading the word on housing repair grants, affordable housing initiatives like the Land Bank and the Housing Trust Fund, Project Diamond, and the environmental sustainability initiatives that we've taken on. We've been recognized for the work that we've done by both the private and the public sector organizations. And Bill will tell you a little bit more about some of those awards that we've received.
So the awards you see on the screen right now represent the acknowledgement of our peers from around the country for the creativity, passion, and love that our DPC team members bring to the job every day, and the outstanding talent we have on our team. One award in particular stands out, and I'm sure I'm going to make Caitlin blush, but Caitlin Keeler is the 2022 Social Media Professional of the Year. And the award name sounds innocuous. That is until you hear just how and why she received this award. First, this is not an award for which you apply. Caitlin's marketing peers from all levels of government around the country chose to honor Caitlin's tireless professionalism and selfless work ethic, not just here at the county, but for time and again availing herself and her expertise to colleagues from around the country, especially throughout the pandemic. She stood out because she cares, and that shapes how she approaches her work. By the way, to put in perspective what receiving this award is like for Caitlin, imagine every congressperson, every state legislator, every county commissioner, and every city council or township board member around the country getting together and deciding to honor one of you as Legislator of the Year. That's how special this recognition is. The most gratifying recognition, however, for the DPC team is the one-by-one COVID-19 vaccine campaign. Not only because we received 3 awards from 3 separate peer groups, but also because we are able to see the tangible results with residents who made appointments to get vaccinated against coronavirus. 940,000 out of our 1.25 million residents have had at least their first dose of COVID vaccine. More than 512,000 Oakland County residents have received booster doses. A marketing campaign to move the needle forward on getting vaccinated, which allow businesses to ramp up their production, students to return to the classroom, and loved ones to gather for special events again. That is what makes this recognition and our hard work behind it so incredibly gratifying. Next, Hillary will update you on the DPC's upcoming priorities. Hillary?
Excellent, thank you. Thank you all. I think you can see why I'm so proud of this team, and thank you for your patience in letting us lead you through the year in review. But we're not resting on our laurels because there's a lot of priorities that we have going forward. I think a lot of the work that we have done illustrates the gaps that we see. So on this chart, I want to talk about a few of the gaps. One, the social media policy that the board reviews and approves is up for a refresh, and Caitlin will be leading that effort, so stay tuned because you'll be seeing that come before you. Two, what we really discovered, and it's something that really is important to this team, is that we need to do a lot better job in terms of removing silos in terms of constituent service. And we saw that in the equity audit, that we want to make sure that someone that comes in at health knows how to access food or knows how to access housing, that we have a more seamless kind of system. And what has been frustrating to us is we don't have any unified data system. So every different department and division, they have their own way of tracking individuals. So not only do we want to kind of solve an issue that Ashley's team has, which is to be able to track the constituents that they work with, we're also working with, we're seeking other companies that can help us more globally to see if there's a way not to change the systems that are working, like in the animal shelter, in community corrections, or in health, but to see if there's a way that we can get them to talk to one another so that we know if someone is coming in one door that they have access to all of our services. The other thing that fits into that is another priority for us, and these are not budget requests, but we have to do a better job in terms of our phone tree and our automated system to make sure that actually people who need to speak to someone can reach someone. And so we're working with IT, again, to try to improve that experience, that user experience. Again, part of our equity audit, people tested the system. And I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's not as perfect as you would like. You know, you press 1, you go to 3, you go to 4, then you get a voicemail. You know, or then you press 0 and you actually go to a switchboard operator that's housed in IT, not in community engagement. Or in the evening, you go to building safety. And we need to make sure that all those pockets of people have the right information so that we're referring people. So that is kind of, that's a major priority for us to try to figure out. I don't have a solution for it yet, but it's something that we're very much working on. Another major overhaul that we're very excited about, and it's been kind of a county-wide process to date and going forward, is we're really changing the framework. You guys maybe call it the skin. There's different terms that they use for the website in terms of like what its foundation is. And we're making a complete transformation of how it's housed now to where it's going to be housed. And this really started, you know, about 6 or 8 months ago, where we got everybody from all county departments together who accessed the website and used the website to see what their needs were. People want to be able to do better things on their web pages, you know, like have different technology capabilities, different pages, different way to engage with people. And so we got them all together. We learned what their needs were. We issued an RFP. People throughout the county participated in the interview process. We selected a vendor. You all approved it. And now Pam and Caitlin are leading the effort to completely revamp the website. And they'll transfer, this company will transfer the content over here in a few weeks. And then it'll go live next year. But it'll be much more user-friendly. What we found during COVID, especially when Ashley's team was answering the hotline, is we got a good sense of like what you could find and couldn't find on our website. So you're going to see a website that is much more search-friendly, because what we found in the research, and this company did user testing of our website. They did like this heat map to see where people go on our website. We surveyed residents about what you want to see on our website, and people want to be able to search more. They want to be able to find what they're looking for more quickly. So you'll see our website will be very different looking. Also, what we're finding, Caitlin mentioned this, is how many people are doing it on their phone. You know, they're not doing it on their desktop anymore, which makes it different. And what they're doing is they're scrolling. And so it won't be a static one page and then you go to another page. It will be, the home page will allow you to kind of get a lot of information through the scrolling thing. So it's really exciting. It's a process, you know, it is a process of really changing, you mentioned all the pages, the content over and going live, but it's going to be by next February, March, you know, I think you'll be much more happy with our website. So that's a key thing. You'll see, now I'm getting to a budget impact. You'll see we have proposing an older adult service chief. So this will be an initial step to coordinate and to evaluate all those services that we provide to senior citizens, knowing how important that is to the county executive and also to the Board of Commissioners. So that's in our budget. And then finally, I want to mention the key performance indicators. I think under Kyle's leadership, every one of our departments is coming to you first, describing their key KPIs that they are developing. You know, from the state of the county, not only do we have the 7 goals with community indicators, but each of our departments are presenting what we call 5 department level KPIs. The departments have done it in 2 phases. There was an initial set of 5 or 6 departments that started last fall. This team just got started a few months ago, so these are still in formation. These are the headline KPIs that we're working on right now. After we finalize them, we'll do what all the other departments are doing that you'll see in their presentations and develop out service level KPIs too, so that we can measure the work that we're doing.
I'm gonna ask you to wrap it up real quick here because I want to give the commission time to ask some questions too.
We're finally getting the budget highlights.
Last slide.
Last slide.
A lot of this has already been covered, so I won't dwell too much on this. As Hillary mentioned, our budget is basically status quo. The only increase that you'll see in our operational budget side is $9,500 for operational needs associated with the new position for the older adult services chief. And otherwise, our budget remains the same so that we have another year to be able to evaluate our actual expenditures to decide what to do for fiscal year '24. The other note here related to workforce, you will see a Finance Committee adjustment coming your way soon in the next week or two regarding an error that we found in the funding source for 3 positions that are currently in general fund but should have been in special revenue, so those will be moved along with all of the paperwork and finance that goes with that. So Ibra will be helping me figure out how to do that. So, regarding ARP, we do just want to say out loud that we know that we've got 4 positions with ARP funding that has a planned sunset in 2024. Otherwise, that is the last of the presentation, and we're ready for questions.
Thank you very much. Very comprehensive, and we had a little extra time, so I didn't make you speed up. But I will open it now to the commissioners, starting with Commissioner Powell.
So, great to close out on that, because I got a question. What is the plan, or what are you thinking to eventually find funding for those 4 positions? So I just want to know, because I will say, I do depend on Ashley a whole lot. And I do like what I'm seeing, at least is coming out of this department. So Hillary, where are we thinking you're gonna try to pull some funds from, or do you have some idea? It'd just be good to feel like you have some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll know really over the next year as we figure out how our operation budget is coming together, and also some of the other funding sources in the county executive's budget. But, you know, as we've seen the workforce shift over the last few years and going forward, you know, it's our full intention to make sure that those positions are covered in the general fund when ARP sunsets. We did think it was appropriate, given the amount of interaction that we're doing and that you saw promoting and explaining ARP dollars to utilize those resources. But we definitely intend on keeping the positions.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Commissioner McGilvery.
Yeah, you pointed out that there's 9,500 expenses for the senior citizen position, chief of senior citizen. Is there anywhere in your budget where the funds for that person's salary?
Yeah, that's in the budget.
Okay, it's in the budget.
Pam was just highlighting the support services. Also in the budget, which this individual utilized, which we did not fully utilize in this last year, is, you know, resources to do the more assets in terms of brochures, mailings, telephone town halls. You know what I mean? Like the general budget for DPC contains all those kind of things that this person will need to tap into in order to communicate better to residents about the services that we provide older Americans.
And
it's just we didn't need to ask for more money because we have enough money in our budget to cover those types of things. It was always our intention to do those types of activities, like a countywide senior mailing, a senior fest. You know, those kind of things are still in our planning, and this person will help coordinate that.
And that department, the Chief of Older Person Services, is one person?
It's where it's starting, yep.
Okay. Do you anticipate it growing at all?
I think we'll have to wait and see, like we saw with Aaron, like we've seen with other cases. I mean, it's going to start within the community engagement team, and then we'll see going forward and work that out with you all in terms of, is it a matter of someone who coordinates the services that are going on, or do we need to provide more access to, more resources to that area?
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Cabell.
Hi, apologies for coming in late, so forgive me if you covered this, but, so the Department of Public Communications is different than the county executive's communications office, right? Or is it one clearinghouse for communications, right?
Yeah, so we did cover this at the very, very beginning of the presentation. We went over all of the areas of DPC, but you all created a Department of Public Communications.
Right.
So the PowerPoint that you have access to will illustrate the breadth of work that they do. But DPC is envisioned of supporting the entire county's communications efforts. So we went over the collaborations. So what generally happens is we take in requests from other departments, whether they are within the executive office or not, to help them with. So whether it's the sheriff's annual report, or whether it's the treasurer who wants help updating, the logos that they're using. So we take in those requests, and then this team ferrets it out to their support staff, their teams.
Okay. In addition to, though, the county executive having their own communications team that is independent of the Department of Public. No, it's all one.
All
Okay.
one.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. And so then, is this the entity that'll put out the workplace survey, the MTS or MTC, the Diversity Council, Equity Council Diversity Survey?
The cultural assessment has been completed.
Yeah.
Already gone out to our employees. No, this team, because this team is engaged around employee communications, when it comes to, beginning to roll the results of that and changes that the administration is making as a result of that to employees, this team might be engaged in the implementation of those communications. Kathy might write something, Pam might do a graphic, Caitlin might help with an email, but it's really the leadership team, the DEI officer, the deputy county executives, the county executives who are meeting and working with MTS on the recommendations of that cultural assessment and rolling that out to our employees.
I don't think we've seen it.
No, it's not finalized yet.
Okay, but that's coming?
It is coming.
Okay.
What is that?
And so then, we as employees would see it through in our email or something, or as commissioners, there'd be a special presentation about that workplace culture?
Yeah, the rollout has not at all been finalized.
Okay.
Whether it's town halls or videos, it will be a major rollout of that information to both you and county employees.
Okay, great. And then, there was a vendor for, it was $1.8 million. It was for marketing services. And you might have covered this.
Right
but,
here. Just read that.
Okay, yeah. Executive marketing services. Who got that contract? And
Good marketing?
Okay, I don't recall us voting on that or anything. How does that work?
That contract was one that we purchased off of the state MyList program back during COVID. They did all of our marketing around the safety campaign and the vaccine campaign. So that was a CARES Act initiative, back over a year and a half ago.
Okay, so then what do you expect to do with the $326,000 left in their contract?
We don't have any ongoing engagement with them right now. Workforce is utilizing them to do marketing around the Oakland 80 Navigator program and how to communicate to residents about post-secondary degrees and credentials. But that's being done in economic development.
And so the contract came to fruition over CARES?
It did.
So do you all remember that?
That was a CARES Act contract for vaccine and public safety.
And did it go through the normal, I wasn't here then.
It
so-
did. It went through normal
Okay.
procedures.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Oh, one more.
And you missed the fact that it actually won many awards in terms of that
cool.
marketing campaign. So
Nice.
you can see that in your PowerPoint.
Good job.
Commissioner Powell.
So this department, the services that you all provide are really to assist the departments internally. Is there any chance that outside agencies or even residents will have any specific resources or advantages with this department?
I think in terms of, yes, please, go ahead,
Okay.
Ashley.
Well, from community engagement standpoint, we interact with the residents all the time. Commissioner, you'll send me a text and say, Ashley, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. So, so as community engagement, or for instance, with the Webster Community Center project, they got brownfield dollars from our Oakland County Economic Development Department. This team helped with their press release and their news conference. So things like that, we will definitely help with when it's a project that Oakland County is supporting. We've spent dollars behind it. Also, too, residents can come and say, Ashley, I need help finding stage, or I need help with this input, or to get in contact with the sheriffs to staff this and that. Then I'll help connect them with those at the sheriff's office, or connect them with Parks and Recs to help with staffing and staging, or things of that nature. So residents can definitely come. A lot of times people will send them to me for me to figure out if it's something that we can help with, if it's something that we do, and then I'll utilize my team or other partners in the county to figure out if that's some kind of service we offer to residents and if we can help.
The same coordination that Caitlin has started with the social media people throughout the county, because you got to remember, every department has their own social media people. So she's coordinating that, and then Ashley's doing the same as it relates to anybody that's doing public outreach. So she has a regular meeting, whether you're in economic development or housing or veterans, so that all the people who are interacting with the public kind of know what each other are doing and can support each other as well. I mean, that's something we started during COVID and that we're restarting now.
Well, I just want to advise my commissioners, I utilize Ashley a lot for constituent services help, and I refer her a lot of people, and she does take care of our people. So I'm just letting y'all know that.
Good to know.
So I'm big on constituent services. Sorry, that's what I did under Tim Gramo. So and I just want to say she's doing a phenomenal job. And I mean, they do not call me back, so I know she's doing a good job. So thank you very much, Ashley, and her team. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm here for any of the commissioners. We do have it broken up, but if you don't know who your representative is, I'm actually in the process of hiring right now, but if you don't know who your representative is, you can always come over to me and I'll figure out how to help your resident with whatever they need.
Okay, cool. One more question, and then we're going to have to wrap up because we got another whole group. But
Okay.
Commissioner Cavell.
Well, I had two, so I'll make this a two-part, one question.
He's very creative.
Well, and forgive me if you already covered this, but I saw in the budget breakdown, right, you went from 23 positions to 20. You're going to add a senior advocate. Did you have open positions or VESIPs, or did you have to lay someone off? And part two, how is DEI and environmental sustainability like a main force for what you do, right? This is part of your KPIs. You are like the mouthpiece for the county. You are the ones like projecting our values. If you already spoke about that, forgive me, but how do you take that seriously and show us that?
I'll take part one of that. That reduction from 23 to 20 is a technical glitch that we looked into. So there's no change actually in the number of positions other than the addition of the older adult position. So I'll take the heat on that one.
Okay, gotcha.
And I can address the second one. We work really closely with both Aaron Cattell and when Robin was here with Robin, to make sure that our messaging on both the environment and on DEI issues, that we're using an appropriate language and that the messaging is on point. So we're all on the same floor, so we work very closely with both of them.
Okay. If you're not cutting positions, did you meet the 4% cut that all departments are supposed to meet?
No, you all created this as a department just last year. We're just at the 1-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So those reductions wouldn't apply for a new department.
They didn't fall in grade.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, thanks so much for all your preparation, and it was very informative. I really enjoy sitting through these because we learn what's going on and where the highlights are, and congratulations on your award, and to all of you, really. I mean, I do think I've seen the communication increase since I've been here, and some of it I attribute to COVID, because we had to do more communicating and you got creative and all of that. But I think it's all good. I really do. It's the more we communicate, the better it is. So thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute break, 10-minute, 5-minute break?
5, 10.
5. Everybody wants to get out of here if we can. Got it. All right, we are in our 5th series of presentations this afternoon on the Finance Committee budget hearings. We're welcoming the Department of Management and Budget. Welcome, and please introduce, oh, we have to take the roll.
We should take roll, and you also didn't have quorum.
That's right, we need to take roll real quickly.
So Cavell, here. Bowell, she'll be coming back. McGilvray will be coming back. Powell.
Here.
Charles will be coming back. Long.
Here.
Moss.
I'm thinking. Here.
Markham.
Here.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, now, welcome.
All right.
Introduce yourselves and tell us what you want to tell us.
Good afternoon, Kyle Jen, Director of Management and Budget. Unlike usually, I'm not here to talk about the billion-dollar county budget. I'm here to talk about the $25 million Department of Management and Budget, so I will try to only talk for 2.5% of the time I normally do. I'm joined here by the managers of our 3 divisions in the department, who I think you know, but just on board with the county for a month plus now is Michael Lohmeyer, who manages the Equalization Division. Cheryl Johnson is now fully into the role of manager of the Fiscal Services Division, and the incomparable Scott Guzzi manages the Purchasing Division. So I'm going to start with our key performance indicators. I would just, highlight here that one of our community performance indicators, so the highest level of performance indicators, is is maintaining and continuing to earn the AAA bond rating. So that's why you don't see it here, but a key metric that we're obviously always evaluating and working in collaboration with you is to maintain structural balance between our ongoing expenditures and ongoing revenues. So that's first on the list. Secondly, each year we get independent audits, both, from Plant Moran to audit our annual comprehensive financial report, as well as also from Plant Moran, our annual single audit of all of our federal funds. So that provides a good external observation and analysis as to, to ensure that we're following all appropriate accounting principles and federal rules. So we want to keep those audit findings to a minimum. Third, at the very other end of approving the budget is when we, actually pay vendors for the services they provide to us. We want to be a good business partner, so we're going to start measuring, what percentage of the invoices we receive are paid within 30 days and try to get that as close as possible to 100%. Fourth, feeding, again, a county-wide community-level indicator is trying to expand our vendor pool to include more businesses from traditionally underrepresented groups like minorities, women, and veterans. We want to make sure they're receiving outreach and education they need to be able to submit bids on county contracts. And then fifth, in the equalization space, Michael could probably do an hour presentation on the math behind this, but, there is actually a mathematical way to calculate and ensure that you're providing equal and equitable assessments across all local units of government and within all the property classes within each local unit of government. So that's something that's already being tracked that we're going to make sure we're also publicizing. So then
I'm going to stop you right there because, and just digress a minute. We have people come virtually every meeting and say we are raising their taxes because of the way the system works. And we just heard 5 minutes ago, we have this great communications department at the county. I would like to tell that story in a very understandable way so that people know that in Oakland County, we haven't raised your taxes in a long time.
Right.
And here's how you know that, right?
Right.
Because they come here and they say, you raised our taxes again.
They don't understand.
No, we didn't. So I would like to see those two things come together.
Right.
That message and our professional communication staff, and I don't know what I'm asking for, but you know what I mean, right?
We do have a very nice brochure. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It goes out, to all taxpayers in the communities that we perform the assessing services, and we have worked with the public communications team over the last couple of years to make that more user-friendly. It's still complicated because we're trying to explain Proposal A and the Headley Amendment.
Property tax.
Right, but,
Right.
that's one step we've taken to try to make this a little more accessible.
I get it.
and-
Something on the website, I don't know, I'm
Right.
just tired of
Or modern day commercial.
But
Right.
we were sitting here talking, because that's one of the things I was going to bring up when Kyle's done, is we are going to be getting more public relations concentrated, as I did in Novi and as I did in Auburn Hills. If you recall, we did a lot of magazine articles for Michigan Realtor Association. You can go on YouTube. We did a lot of video presentations. We explained assessment notices. We explained how Proposal A worked. We have a colorful brochure on the Novi website. We're going to be getting together, and we were just talking about working with this team. We're going to be doing a lot more public relations, media exchange, not just from Oakland County, but also working with our communities to explain the whole process so that the residents will understand it, the business owner community will understand it, not just Proposal A, but I'm going to talk a little bit more when Kyle's done about some other things that we have in mind to work on, because we're going to be a lot more over-communicated with our residents and business owners. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about what you're talking about.
Good, great answer. Commissioner Powell?
It's almost like when you think of that presentation, can we think of talking to elementary kids?
Right.
And make it so like, you know what I mean, a little animated, and I think that'll help to an elementary level. So then we know everybody majority of us should understand if you go that low. I know I need that for my community, and I ain't even trying to be funny. It is what it is.
We all need it.
All right, point well taken.
Explain
Got
to
it.
me, would a small child or a golden retriever?
You know what? Thank you.
Okay, moving along.
Moving on.
I just want to highlight, on the topic of the key performance indicators, we're also diving down to all the services that the department provides under fiscal services. Obviously, when we're here, we're usually talking about the budget, but there's lots of other things that Cheryl's team provides that you can see listed there, the purchasing function, and then, within Michael's division, both the assessing side and the equalization side. So to date, we've identified 39 key performance indicators to measure performance and progress on those services. So in terms of key changes in our budget from 22 to 23, not a lot going on here. We did meet our reduction target last year. So there are no further reductions this year. The single new investment we're requesting is a chief position in the purchasing division. That's really to help lead those outreach efforts to diversify our vendor pool. There's some work that needs to be done to update our purchasing policies and account for things like that Aaron talked about in terms of environmental sustainability and other best practices. And then the thing that's not listed here is we've also been working to expand our cooperative purchasing agreements with local units of government. So that's a win-win in terms of local units being able to access competitively bid contracts that we have and not have to do that legwork themselves. And then there's actually a 1.5% fee that the vendor pays, not the local unit pays. And that helps support the program and helps support the operations of the purchasing division. So that's a key thing that this chief position would also be involved in. And then lastly, the fourth thing, it would help meet my strategic goal of trying to get Scott to take a vacation. There is one funding shift I wanted to highlight. We looked at the equalization budget as Michael's coming on board. Michael, has a passion for training and education, has been involved in lots of education and training things that he's led, and wants to make sure that the staff and the division are getting the best possible opportunities. So we have identified the $30,000 within the division budget that can be shifted and focused on training as a first step there. So with that, I'm gonna stop here in terms of the major initiatives planned over the next year. I'm gonna ask each of the managers to just take a couple minutes and highlight a few of the key things they and their teams are gonna be working on, starting with Cheryl.
Good afternoon. As you guys know, I'm Cheryl Johnson. I'm the new Lynn Sunkiss. I've been 30 days. So
And you're still here.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
good.
I'm having a ball.
Budget time, too.
I'm having a ball.
Yeah.
Good.
The one of the ongoing initiatives for the finance team is the Workday implementation. Right now, it went live May 9th, so we're about 90 days out, and we are trying to stabilize the system, having meetings with departments, making sure that they're getting the training that they needed to utilize, they need to utilize the system, and make sure that we're getting the reports that they need. And as we talk about ongoing initiatives, I'm just gonna hop down to the anticipated IT projects as well, because one of the things that we're doing is rolling out the adaptive planning portion, which is going to be the new budgeting piece with Workday. That's probably going to be officially live, I would say, January, February. And included in that, we are also rolling out a reporting piece that will help us with our ACFR, which is the annual comprehensive financial report. And so these reports will build on what we have in Workday, and it's going to make it a lot more seamless and hopefully easier for departments to pull the information that they need to make decisions that they've got coming up. So those are major initiatives in my area. And I'm going to pass it over to Scott to talk about his purchasing.
Scott Guzzi, Purchasing Administrator. Our first key piece is the position. About 6 years.
Can you pull the mic up closer to you?
There we go.
Thank you.
About 6 years ago, we had 13 people in our department, so we're down to 10. But our volume, we've pretty much stayed the same. We're between 110 to 140 million dollars of expenditures go through the office. So with electronics, we've become more efficient. With the attrition plan, we lost a person, and then when we broke away from compliance, then we went down again. So right now, our, I guess, paperwork is down, but our other type of research stuff is needed more. And that's why we need the position to really help out, to go out on, for the local suppliers, this KPI development is a lot of work. It isn't just press a button and you get all the data you need. You have to go out and pull it from this place and call people and things like that. We also need to work on our training for not only us, but for all across the county. With Workday, everybody actually could buy. They're all requesters, as we call them, and they have P cards and things like that. And we also have over 1,100 contracts within the county, and we have contract administrators, and we would like to start a training program for them so that they understand the development of the contract, and then when it's running, how to look for problems. And if we do that correctly, that helps Cheryl out because there's always issues. And that's one big thing. And the other one is our cooperative contracts. We've had cooperative contracts since I've been here since 1998. We usually had about 20. Right now, we're almost at 75. We have a lot of local entities. We have and other entities across the state and across state lines that are using them. So we're trying to promote that. And that takes a little bit of marketing on our side. We work with the vendors. They market them, but at the same time, we have to. So this position will help take the load off of me so I can focus on some of those things, and this person can help out also. And that's probably the biggest piece with us. Right now, we are fully electronic. Since COVID, it sort of forced us. We have to update our purchasing policies to meet that call. Right now, we still have things about we're going to open up a bid at a certain time and do these things. So we're opening up bids on Zoom, and people are watching. And we have to write all that down. We have to make it so it's more black and white. Right now, it's just a little gray at times. So we have to work on that. Okay, I'll hand this off to Mike.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you for asking the question you did, because that's a nice natural segue into what I was going to offer to you all for what I'm going to be focusing on for part of my responsibilities over the next few months. And I'm glad you brought up about keeping the what we communicate outward as simple as possible, because I raised 2 girls as a single dad, and when I took over that responsibility, they were very young, and they started taking appraisal and property tax classes. I think they were 12 and 16, and my daughter Hannah got her certification in assessing, and she works for a huge apartment portfolio company now. Still, well, not that young. But they started taking appraisal institute classes and state tax commission classes. They don't want to be an assessor, but
I told you he was very passionate about education.
But they have quite the resume for assessing and appraisal classes behind them. And so explaining things very simple, so people can understand it very simple, was very important. And my daughters did very well, and my one daughter did very well in the class when she took her MCAT class. So that is part of my role, is try to make sure everybody can understand it. So to explain a few things we do have in store is one of the things Kyle and I have talked about is getting the information out, because there is some very important things coming up, like the personal property tax exemption. Next year, it goes from $80,000 true cash value to $180,000. So any business that has in a jurisdiction a true cash value of $180,000, as long as they file properly and timely, will be exempt going forward for that personal property. That's something we want to get out there. The assessment information, like I have for years, gotten out there so people can understand the assessment notice. People can come in and come to the March Board Review. People know the difference between assessed value and taxable value. People understand what Proposal A means, understands what that consumer price index inflation rate is that we don't create, the Board of Review doesn't control, but it's established by the State Tax Commission based on the Bureau of Statistics and Labor adjustments, and it's attributed throughout the state. We want to get that information out there in a public relations forum so we can help educate our residents and our business owners so that we can help them understand it better. So if they do believe that they have something they can communicate to us, but we also want to make sure our records are accurate. So we want to make sure they have access to the information so that we can make sure that if it needs to be corrected, they can. But we also talked about principal residence exemptions and disabled veterans exemptions, all of the different exemptions that they have an opportunity for, that we get that information out to them in a very simplified manner so that they can understand it, not just this year, but continuously throughout the year, which is where the website, new design comes in. So we've talked about that. The other thing that we have that's going on right now is I have scheduled meetings with all of the communities we do contract assessing for. I'm going to be personally going out to every single community starting next week to meet with the local leadership. So all of the jurisdictions that you're commissioner for, I'll be meeting. We've sent the invitation out there. My supervisors have. Some of them wanted, and we've addressed it to their leadership at their convenience. So maybe a supervisor responded and said, this would be convenient for me, and maybe a treasurer came back and said, could you do it a different day? I'll go out there 2 or 3 times if I have to. It's for their convenience. I want to know that leadership. I want to build that relationship. And it won't be just a one and done thing. I plan on doing this at least annually, going out, because in some communities that leadership will change. So I am starting that next week. It's taken time to get those dates on the calendar. Sure. Because they've had other things going on, like summer tax billing and collections. So they've had other things to do. But starting next week, I will be going out to all those communities. So again, we've sent it to the local leadership. If other people want to join in those meetings, that's fine. But I will be going to all those local meetings.
Commissioner Powell had a question.
I just wanted to put on your radar, if you have any issues with the city of Pontiac, you call me.
I've had no issues with anybody. I've had not a single issue setting appointments. I'm pretty sure I have Pontiac signed up.
If I would like to know, because I
I'm pretty
may
sure.
well join that meeting myself.
Yeah, if there's any communities that you want to sit in, just call them and ask when when the appointment is, because I believe I have Pontiac already signed
I
up.
work there, so I'm gonna check with them tomorrow.
But I've had no issues with setting appointments. Some of them have just asked for another date so that all the leadership could be
Yeah, 'cause we
present.
have an issue where there's a possibility some of our properties have not been properly or taken care of the county, but we ain't took care of it over there, so it's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, I haven't had anything expressed to me that there's been any issue. Everybody's been pretty welcoming.
Okay.
So, the other thing I'm doing is not just the communities we contract with, but I also have already scheduled a meeting in September to meet with the assessors of all the non-contract units. Because again, we want to have a strong relationship with them, so when we do this public relations effort, we're going to be representing all the taxing authorities, all of the different communities, all of the different jurisdictions. We want a strong relationship with everybody. The other thing that Kyle spoke to is the training. We have already scheduled, I've already been meeting with the staff on a regular basis, our leadership team, but we also have a leadership education program scheduled in early October with my leadership team, as well as all of the staff in our department, which is about 86 people. And there was a new class developed by the Appraisal Foundation, which creates the standard of ethics for all appraisers around the country. That's required. And you might have read about it back in 2021, but Maxine Walters had addressed bias in the appraisal and lending profession. And the Appraisal Foundation talked about how their standards of ethics for appraisers address that. But they decided to go a step further and make a class required of all appraisers around the country for the next 2 years. We have brought that in-house, and we are going to be having all of our staff take that training on October 6th and 7th. Our clerical, our appraisers, our MTT people, and we're bringing in a former president of the Appraisal Institute to teach that class, who is certified by the Appraisal Foundation. So that's something that we're going to be having in our office, not because we recognize any problems, it's because I taught that class and I had the chair of the State Tax Commission in my audience, and Chairman Peggy Nolde thought it was a great class. And she thought all the assessors should take it, so we're going to do it for our staff. And all of our staff is pretty excited about it. So we become a sponsor of that class, and we're doing it in-house. Every single member of our staff is doing it. So we've taken that initiative as part of our educational process, and it's been approved by the State Tax Commission for our own continuing ed for the staff members that are certified. So that's one of the things I'm pretty proud of doing. But those are just a few of the things that are getting our pendulum swinging, I think, in a really great direction as we move towards the end of the year. We've got a lot of other things heading that way, but that's just a few of the things I wanted to bring up because of the question that you asked.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, and with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, Commissioner Moss.
Question is an observation. I noticed the line item for training is like growing, I wouldn't say exponentially, but certainly very greatly. I mean, what's 4 point? Oh, I'm on page, 206, management and budget. Under operating expenses, a second to the last line item. And it's just dovetails of what you're talking about, training.
Yep.
It's a very, very large increase, and frankly, I think that's a great one, by the way.
We appreciate that.
I know.
I think that's going to be a focus across the entire department, so, you know.
I mean, normally, if stuff that goes way up, I try to, I'm pretty critical of it, not this one. Don't worry, I'm trying.
We try to spend money to save money.
I generally spend money to spend money, so.
Commissioner Powell.
Question for you. Multiple resolutions requested funding both from the general fund and ARPA to support the ERP replacement project. Will there be more requests for general fund appropriations with this project in the future?
There will not. All components of the system and all planned project expenditures were included in that last resolution that we brought to you. The last piece, that we have to do, as Cheryl mentioned, is build the budget component so we can produce a budget next year for you. So we will manage within what's been appropriated and will not be back. There are some ongoing maintenance costs. Those are all baked into the budget as it stands.
Okay, is the 1 million in a department transfer to the building improvement fund sufficient for the fiscal year 2023 10 million proposed projects in the capital improvement plan?
So I'm not quite sure what that question's getting at. We were increasing the transfer into the building improvement fund to fund the capital improvement program by $1 million each year. I'm not sure it's 10 million for 23 though. It may be more like 4 million.
Mike and Mike?
Mikey Mike?
Oh, I know what the answer is. The answer is that there are carry forwards within the fund. So you're seeing $10 million in projects in 23, but that's because there are funds that were transferred into the fund in prior years that haven't been fully expended yet.
Got it, okay.
So that makes the question make more sense in my brain.
And this may be redundant, but these are questions, I kind of asked them out of order. But it's a recent item submitted to the board for approval suggests that the department is still developing process improvements for the financial and human capital management system. Can you confirm that this budget does not have any further findings set aside to address for the one-time implementation costs for the ERP replacement project, not pertaining to any reoccurring maintenance costs?
I can confirm that. So Cheryl's team and Scott's team and the other departments involved in the Workday project are working hard to make sure that the system works as well as possible and as efficiently as possible, but they're doing that with their own time and resources that we're already paying for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes my questions. Madam?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Long. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Line item 731458, professional services. What does, I know it says actual 100,000 and you might only spend it again, but your a budget amount 463, what does that include?
I was going to ask that, Chris.
I'm always on professionals. Yes, I am on 206 and just the professional service line. Just because actually you spent, so you might always just earmark that 463, but what does professional services include in the management and budget?
I think it's the Maximus.
Right, so we have the contract for the annual cost allocation plan. So I think that's the biggest chunk of the 100,000. There are also, this is also actually to loop back to a question that came up earlier. This is where the funds have been appropriated for the potential countywide grant writing function that we need to get stood up.
Oh, okay.
So that's in that number as well.
So that 463 might include that grant?
Yes.
Okay. Because I just see that, I mean, I know those are just earmarked monies, 463,000, so, okay.
Because they pay for the assessor.
Right.
Process.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Cavell.
Well, so that being said about the grant writer person, that's awesome, or the grant team. But why is the county executive, why is Erin getting $50,000 to help with grant writing?
Well, I mean, I think she's looking at specific services to in terms of potential funding in the environmental sustainability area. We'd be looking at, something that's broader in nature, and accessible to all departments as needed.
So then the $360,000 that would go to a grants team, do you have any more, broader, a concept on that, or any plans fleshed out? Other than that allocation is somehow good?
I think that's an item for us to pick back up. I think that got a little lost in the shuffle with Workday and other things. So we've got that as an action item to get the ball rolling again.
Okay, got you. And then I just wanted to hear more from you, Mr. Guzzi, about the procurement person, because I was under the impression that was to help us with diversifying the way we do our, okay.
Yeah,
So tell me more
I mean,
about
definitely it'll be that. Right now, and for the past 15, 20 years, we've been going to vendor outreach, and we're participating now with the veterans group, with planning and economic development. We're almost every couple weeks, there's a couple of us going somewhere. And at the same time, with Workday now, we have the opportunity to train, we call them suppliers, not vendors anymore, and to bring them on board. And the biggest thing that we find out is a lot of the smaller vendors are just, I don't know, they're hesitant to respond to an RFP or a bid. I don't have the insurance, or I don't have this, and I'm really not sure. So it is training, you know, and once they do one or two, then they feel comfortable. And yes, they may not obtain the award the first or second time, but they also, you know, everything is transparent, so they find out what other people are charging or whatever, and then they have the opportunity to look into that. So it's a slow process. You know, after COVID, there's been a lot of these smaller firms that have disappeared off the face of the earth, and then there's new ones. And, you know, we're really sort of starting over. We've had a vendor pool probably of, I don't know, 5,500 for the past 15 years. You know, and it goes down and it goes up, and, you know, what we do right now, we can look and see who's been active. And, you know, it hasn't changed much in Oakland County, that poll.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many of these types of purchasing people that can help with getting smaller or black-owned or women or veteran-owned businesses, how many would you want to have?
Well, all my buyers do it actively all the time. You know, when we go out to bid, you know, we use BidNet, I think you know that. And so there's so many registered. But we also ask around and try, like we'll go to some of the NAACP, do different things. Do you have a list of people? We found different areas where we can send stuff out, and just through word of mouth. A lot of time, the requesters, as we call them, the worker bees within the county, come to us and say, hey, I know this guy down here, and he may be interested. So we'll electronically send them an invitation. Usually there's some questions back and forth, and then we get them on board. So it's you sort of have to rein them in one at a time. And every time we do a bid, your goal is to find another new supplier that could, bring some competition into the field.
Okay. The requester thing you mentioned, but just to note then, if the county's workforce went from being 14% non-white to then 12% non-white, the requesters using their network might not be as sustainable. Not saying it's anyone here's fault or anything, but just highlighting the structural deficiency.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Just look at my own notes. Building space allocation. As I was looking at the different departments, right, and they all, they had their rates go up because the rates of building space allocation went up this year. So that just triggers in my mind the shrinking. Are we going to make that happen? What's that really going to look like? Because if our building space allocation is going up, but we have all these empty buildings, that's a disconnect for me. And I know it's just because of the cycle that we're in.
Yep.
But I guess my question is, do we have a plan to look at that? Because it affects all the departments, whether they're moving, growing, shrinking, or whatever.
Yep, I mean, it's absolutely front of mind. As was mentioned at the larger budget presentation, we're just now getting back the preliminary results of the outside assessment of all the county's facility needs. It's a lot to process, but that's front of mind as we're working through that within the county executive office with the goal of starting to bring you, what are those first steps in terms of addressing the things we have to address with our current footprint, and what are the options to work to start to reduce our footprint long term. So I don't have anything specific I can offer up today, but I can assure you it's front of mind.
You can just take that message back that we're asking about that all the time.
Right.
Because it's got a lot of benefits to it if we do it right. So, okay, if nobody else has any other questions, Commissioner Cavell has.
You just made me think of one, Gwen.
Uh-oh.
How big is our CIP, right? The fund for it? If you were saying there were carry forwards, like Commissioner Powell's question, how much money is in there?
Right.
Capital
So
improvement
for
plan?
context, the preliminary assessment we've gotten of how much we would need to spend on our county facilities over the next 10 years to get them up to an ideal state is well in excess of $500 million. The budget a couple years ago only had $3 million per year for maintenance projects. We are ramping that up by $1 million per year as a first step. We know that's not going to fix everything, but we got to start to get on top of, roofs and smaller, type projects to prevent things from deteriorating further. So we are increasing that transfer into the building improvement fund by $1 million a year with the goal of getting up to $8 million, I think, in perhaps 4 years from now.
So it's probably going to, so then in this budget, the building fund then is $4 or $5 million?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions? I am going to say thank you to the Office of Management and Budget.
Thank you.
And I will open the floor now for public comment. If there's anyone from the public who cares to address this group. Seeing no one, I will close public comment.
I'm just messing with you.
I know. And if there's no other business to come before us.
Defund the police.
I know. I will call this meeting adjourned at 4:43.
Wow, 2 minutes early. Yeah.
And there's more snacks.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Yeah,